This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com. You know, I think there's some shenanigans happening in the goalie community. Are you going to speak on that?
In the goalie community.
Former goalie?
You know I got to ride with Goalie Nation, but...
oh, boy. Duke making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow.
But the Big Ten's a bad conference. That's a joke. If this gets clipped, that's a joke.
Oh no.
I'm definitely flipping that one now. Now, here's Jupiter and Vegoe. GPL podcast, episode number 237. Well, Viggs is on vacation this week. He's in Washington, D.C., so we're going to bring in two other guys that have helped out so many times. Drew Cove, Nate Wells. There they are. Hello, gentlemen.
How's it going?
It's going good. And look at that, Nate. Look at that jersey.
Yeah, I came underdressed.
I was gonna say you have the you got the visual element now, so had to dress the part.
Yeah, it's very nice. How goes it on the East Coast there, Nate?
East Coast is good. Life's treating me well. It was 60 degrees today. Kind of that nice nice part where
right now.
Yeah.
You just made to stop.
Hey, we've had 2.5 inches of snow all winter. So
yeah, it's been a weird winter.
It has been a really weird one. I was back in Minnesota at the end of February for my dad's birthday, and that was the first time that I'd seen a bunch of snow like all winter, and it felt really weird. I just didn't know what to do with myself.
And it really has been an odd winter in that area to have so little snow.
Yeah, we just keep being too warm. Or like it's about 35, 38 degrees, and we'll get that like an inch of rain. So like, if it was a little cooler, it would be about a foot of snow or something. But yeah, it's pretty much, we're at spring officially now, and we're at NCAA Tournament time. So winter's over. It's coming to an end.
It is. And then Drew, you're stuck with me in the cold.
Yep. Nope. It's I feel like we got 2 inches just this week of rains or snow. So it's thankfully it rained yesterday, but that's
yeah, I was listening to that last night. It was kind of strange. All right, guys. Well, NCAA tournament time, my favorite weekend of the year time. But before we get to that, we have some Big Ten and other championships that happened this past weekend. Drew, the Gophers did it again. They couldn't finish it out at home against Michigan.
Yeah, I really thought they could do it this year. It was it seemed like, these guys came back. They had the bad taste in their mouth from the year before, but just didn't end up right. I mean, you saw it was 2-2 after the first two periods, and you said, this Gopher team all year, it feels like if they're down or tied, it hasn't really felt like there's not a lead they can overcome against any team. And it just really felt like, okay, no, it seemed like a lot of people weren't worried or didn't have a reason to be worried. And then you see the greatest goal you've ever seen. And I'm still holding to that. That was the coolest goal I've ever seen. I don't know if I'll ever see a goal cooler than that my entire life. That was amazing. And it felt like it was like, it felt like it was going to be like, okay, the Gophers are going to win that one. Like that was such a cool goal. Mm-hmm. It blew the lid off the place. And it felt like it made you feel like, okay, this is like Gophers are going to win this. And like, but 18 minutes left in the period. And Michigan comes back a little bit. And it wasn't one of the games that Justin Close stole for you. But I think it was overall like a pretty decently played game. The Gophers had a few lulls in there at times and sometimes for extended periods of time. But that they still held in it after playing one game in like however many, like one game in 2 weeks up until then. I thought it was, and like Bob said, it's like, he said it was good to play a competitive team right then and just didn't end up the way that they wanted to again.
Well, Nate, what did your thoughts after that game this past weekend?
It was a championship caliber game between two championship caliber teams. At the end of it, but Bob said about playing a top team, you really expect Michigan to be there again at the end of the year. and it really just shows the high end talent that both teams have. Do you think at this point Rhett Pitlick is kind of wondering what he can do to score something and like raise the roof off of Mariucci Arena and not have it like all of a sudden quickly go awry? Because I mean, he had the stick toss North Dakota, and they go and score 3 times quickly. He has the number 1 play Sports Center, gives Minnesota the lead, and that one goes away. And Drew kind of touched on it. For me, the disappointing part of that game is something that you really haven't seen from Minnesota too much this year. Is losing a lead in the third period. The Gophers have just been really resilient. They're able to kind of come back from any deficit, but then so is Michigan. And so it's what makes those matchups when both teams are healthy and at full strength so entertaining to watch, where they're able to counter one another. I mentioned on Twitter that when they're watching it, I'm like, I could watch a best of 7 of these just because watching the two teams counter one another, go back and forth, and seeing it over a series would be so much fun. And you even get it just from period to period in these games. So I think it's a good learning lesson for Minnesota, especially entering the tournament, and where you know that one loss sends you home and ends your season. But at the end of the day, it was a little disappointing to see Minnesota not lift that second hardware.
And Drew, what I really thought was kind of what really killed them was that second period when they had those 2 quick goals against, and it just seemed like the Gophers even looked lost at that moment.
Yeah, they definitely were on their heels, and it looked like they needed some spark of life, and it looked like Nyes and or Cooley were trying to give it like they always do, but it didn't really work. And they went from being in the first period super strong on the puck and really good at just keeping possession, like into the zone, and even just in like on shift changes. But in the second, it was really soft on retrievals, really soft on keeping the puck, and it just didn't seem it looked like they were just lost at that point. I don't know, but it did not. It just didn't. It didn't look like the same team in the second period there after those couple of goals, at least for a little while. And then obviously they kind of come back with some energy in the third. But yeah, that second period was a bit of a just kind of soft on keeping the puck and going to get the puck, even in their own defensive zone. It just looked like you see it ring around the boards just forever because it was, big ice last time. We're going to be able to say that, but it went forever. And then even like, I think Brock Fabers and Ryan Johnson's just kind of like not getting to the puck fast enough. And then it turned into an offensive possession for Michigan. And it just didn't do themselves any favors in that period to kind of regain the lead.
We got a question from Corey here, or a comment. Last half of the game, Gophers looked gassed, concerning. Lacombe was brutal and looked like he should not have played. I did notice Lacombe didn't seem quite his self. Obviously, he's coming back from injury. People were saying that Faber didn't look himself either. And that kind of leads to what you were saying there, that, maybe he was not getting to pucks. Maybe Johnson wasn't getting to pucks. What do you think of those thoughts about Corey there, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell Lacombe was a bit slower. And you do wonder that if Brock Faber playing and like maybe playing as much as he needed to for that kind of game, if it was any other game, I think even if it was like the semifinal, I think he would have played like a little bit less. But I mean, those guys are going to have to be on. So hopefully they've been getting their rest this week and kind of just getting ready back into full game shape, because it's just kind of the first week back for Lacombe. It was a little sketchy at times for compared to how good they've been all season, because they've been all world all season, and just like them that it's noticeable when they're a little bit off their game.
What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, and it's noticeable when you're going against a Michigan team that has the firepower that they are, and a team that there's only a few teams that have that can match Minnesota in the offensive firepower and have those top lines and give the challenge to the Gophers blue line. But at the same time, you're probably going to end up playing those teams if they continue to advance to the NCAA tournament. So I think the experience is going to be great for Minnesota. You have 4 games. They're going to be against 4 extremely, extremely good teams. It's tough to end anybody's season, and especially the last 16 teams who are in the NCAA tournament. They've earned it. It's either they've earned it throughout the entire season, or they are hot at the right time. And they are teams that know how to win postseason games.
What do you think about the format of the tournament? A lot of leagues have gone to this format now, except for a select few. We know Motzko doesn't like it, Nate, but I'm guessing it's not the best. As Viggs has said all year long, it's probably not the best for the league itself to not play as many games at the end of the season.
It's not, and it either would be great to have a 3-week tournament where the second week of the semifinals is also best of 3, and then there's just one championship game, or it's condensed into a 2-week final where the final 4 are in the highest seed, and you have 3 games there, which obviously, I mean, it's been pretty much the motive. It's pretty much the regular college hockey postseason tournament, which you see a lot of themes. I mean, that's basically like the Frozen Face-Off, the old WCHA Final 5. So for me, I think that'd be the perfect thing. And obviously the Big Ten doesn't do it because Wisconsin, Ohio State don't have control of their buildings this time of year. It's the reason why they initially did the neutral site tournaments that I think I was the only one who ever showed up to them.
I think I went the first year. I was there with I think there were about 4 go for 5. Big Mistake was there, I think.
It was me and Big Mistake were like there in Detroit.
And if I recall correctly, you took a bus, didn't you?
I definitely did a bus out to
the bus there.
I did the bus to Detroit. Yeah, Chicago through to Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you ever fly Minneapolis to Detroit, it's like really expensive because it's just 2 Delta hubs.
Exactly.
But I did that. Stayed with some friends. Went down to the Joe. Enjoyed it. Although I didn't really enjoy that 2017 one where I was covering for the Strib and it was Penn State, Wisconsin kept going to double overtime. And the thing was with that, I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was if Penn State won, Minnesota was a 1 seed. If Wisconsin won, Minnesota was a 2 seed. So I was just writing about 3 different stories on Deadline. I had a notebook. I realized afterwards while talking, it was your friend of the show, Jack Ramsey. That was the notebook it was on. And it was one of those things where I'm just like, end game, end. Want to be able to send this, don't miss Deadline. And of course, Deadline passed.
That's the one thing about hockey. It can just keep going and going and going. It's not going to end.
It was one of those things. I'm like, everyone in the building is like, this is so great. This is great hockey. This is so fantastic. And then me and Todd Molesky are just like, end, deadline.
But I Drew, Nate's suggesting that maybe that second semifinal is a 2 out of 3. I kind of like that if they can get another team in the league and prevent a bye.
Yeah, I think the bye is definitely the issue. That sounds like it. Obviously, Bob's kind of qualm with it, and being obviously that's kind of hard to have a complaint as the 1 seed. But yeah, you do have to take a lot of time off, and especially after you've been playing consecutively for so long, 2 games on a weekend for the entire since October. It is a weird shift, especially when you're supposed to be ramping up and playing like really intense hockey and just kind of playing. And like, yeah, it's weird to kind of do that, play a couple games, play a scrimmage, wait a few weeks, and then jump into actually competitive tournament games where the teams they're playing against were playing to make the tournament. And the Gophers obviously had not as much to play for, especially this year. But yeah, it's a work in progress. I think it's better than it used to be in terms of popularity, fan engagement, obviously, but I wouldn't be opposed to the best of 3 second round. But yeah, it just gets to that point. Then do you say, oh, well, then why do we only play 1 game in the championship?
Or how about the championship, Nate? The championship best 2 out of 3.
Oh man, can you imagine the pairwise going back and forth in that for the combinations? It's like, I mean, that's Team X gets in if it goes 3 games.
I mean, you talk about wanting to see a big 7-game series or something like that, but that would kind of really give you that feeling of potential 3 weeks in a row you're playing 2 to 3 games.
It would be fantastic. I mean,
but they might have to start early. Like they'd have to have to go Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, but like 9 games in like 16 or 17 days. That's
yeah.
It is that fine line.
It's better than 0 games that Penn State has played They'll have 19 days off.
That is the tough thing with the 3-week system. Yeah, because you knew either Penn State or Ohio State was going to have 2 weeks off.
Correct.
Minnesota could have played 1 game in a 3-week stretch. Michigan Tech is entering the tournament. They didn't play last weekend at all. They lost to Northern Michigan in the CCHA semifinal. So there's certainly there's the pros and cons to the different styles. I kind of wonder, though, if you have that, just having the semifinals and finals in that same weekend where you're guaranteed to have 4 teams.
Yeah.
So for the most part, your top teams who are going to make the tournament should be there and should not be missing an extra week. As opposed to, for the Big Ten, basically everyone besides, Ohio State missed a week, was off that last week. You only have 2 teams that are going to be playing the week at the championship weekend. So it is a bit of a tough draw, though. I think for the Big Ten, it's certainly something to look into.
Well, the thing is, Quinnipiac lost Friday night, so Minnesota automatically, didn't matter what the result was on Saturday, got the number 1 seed, the number 1 overall seed, I should say. And let's take a look at the tournament here, guys. We get bring this up here. I got the Fargo region. The one Minnesota's in, number 1 against Canisius. We saw that coming just when Canisius won their championship. I know you guys talked about this on your podcast earlier this on Sunday, Drew. St. Cloud and Minnesota State. Sounds like they could have switched a couple other teams, but really, like St. Cloud and Harvard were just extremely close. You couldn't blame them for putting St. Cloud here.
Yeah, within a few percentage points, and like a lot of people say too. The travel does factor into it, and especially when you have a school. St. Cloud's
3 teams took a bus.
Yeah. For St. Cloud, you're going to like not having to fly to make a connection to what Bridgeport, Connecticut, or something, and it's going to be a little bit better for them, I think, for just their fan base and traveling if they can afford the marked up North Dakota fan tickets. We'll see how that works, but it's I think like Veeg said on Twitter, region of death, right? I think a lot of people said that. It's all the demons that the Gophers want/need to face all in one. I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but it's that's a heck of a first round matchup with a lot of in-state eyeballs on that game for sure.
And really, Nate, I think people are probably just more mad that only one Minnesota team can possibly make the Frozen Four.
People love Minnesota teams playing one another. But I want to at least take a step back and let's appreciate the fact that St. Cloud State and Minnesota State make a region of death in the NCAA tournament. Like 5 years ago, if we said that, I think we would all laugh about it.
Yeah, that's true. So
region of death, Big Ten's the best hockey conference. Pets' heads are falling off.
Minnesota State, who until 3 years ago did not win an NCAA tournament game and found increasingly crazy ways to lose NCAA tournament games, and St. Cloud State, who had the same thing earlier in their history, and 4 and 5 years ago lost as the number 1 overall seed in back-to-back years. So it's kind of funny on that end that this is the case, but also I'm like, I get it. It's 2 teams that really get up for Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gophers' strength, one of their big strengths this season is teams need to make adjustments against the Gophers. It takes them a while to figure the Gophers out. There's something like 13-4-1 this season in the opening game of a series. And I think St. Cloud State's one of the few teams that kind of saw them in that first game where the goalie kind of stole it. But really just the Gophers play well against new teams.
I think to slay the demons, though, Holy Cross would have needed to make this tournament.
That would have, the hockey gods they couldn't give it that one. I really thought, though, that it might happen given they were a 7 seed in Atlantic hockey, which Atlantic hockey just beat up on one another each year, like this entire season. They were the 7 overall seed. They beat the number 1, they beat number 2, and the Canisius was 4. And basically in February, they were in 8th in the final spot of Atlantic hockey and kind of got hot right in the middle of February. They put everything together. It's a team that has a lot of grad transfers and used the portal well, so maybe kind of took a bit to gel that identity.
I heard they had someone that's older than me on that team. There's a 26-year-old on Canisius.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Drew, you got like one more year of people being older than you in college
Right?
hockey.
I didn't think that was still possible. Watching the Gophers, it's like, oh man, they're all
Yeah.
Well, I think it just would have been fun if it was Holy Cross and then Minnesota State were to beat St. Cloud. So you'd have that really old demon, Holy Cross, and then you've got the last 2-year demons. That could still possibly happen. But I think you guys are right, though. I do like this draw because I think it helps Minnesota no matter what, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's good for the Gophers to get some of this competitive, some of this big competition in, because obviously, like it or not, I think there are a lot of really competitive. I think a lot of the other regions are obviously very competitive. I think obviously the Denver region is very, very is very, very tough. But I got to say, Minnesota getting past these two teams. I mean, granted, they get past Canisius, and like we've seen in the past for people like for Bob and his history and the Gophers' history, albeit a while ago, it's not a complete given, and it's hockey. So given they get past Canisius, whoever they face in that is going to be a really tough game, and I think it's going to mean a lot to the Gopher players that did both. Like they lost to both these teams this year. I mean, shut out against St. Cloud. And I think at the time the Gophers were playing really, really well. That was the start of a really good streak for them, I think, through the end of the season. Before that, kind of in that lull where that was with that Wisconsin series in Madison. But then it's going to be a really tough series. And I think not series, but I think the championship game, given they make it there, is going to set them up really, really well for whoever they face in the Frozen Four, because there could be some weaker teams that make the Frozen Four that don't play Minnesota as well as the Mavericks and the Huskies will.
Well, let's quickly go through the other regions. We have the other what people think is the death region: Denver, Cornell, Boston University, Western Michigan. What do you think, Nate? I really like that first matchup of Denver and Cornell.
It fascinates me so much because you have the defending national champions, a team that plays really well and has a good portion of the core back from that championship team, going against a Cornell team that may historically not perform well in the NCAA tournament, but also matches up very well with the Pioneers. Kind of seems like Denver's Achilles heel this season has been going against very defensive teams with very good goaltending. And also Denver is coming in with some injuries. They're banged up a bit. Magnus Corona missed some time at the end of the year. He also left the NCHC Frozen Faceless semifinal. So I'm really kind of curious to see how this one goes. I think if it were a healthy Denver, it'd be an easier call, but this is a one that really intrigues me. Actually, same thing with the BU Western Michigan. They're two teams that are really just kind of offensive, and I want to see just some crazy offensive scoring in the NCAA tournament. You don't see that too often. It's always these nice defensive battles because no one wants to make a mistake.
What do you think of this region, Nate? Or Drew, sorry.
I mean, I like Denver out of it for sure, but I do think that Boston University Western Michigan match is going to be a pretty fun one. And like you said, I mean, I've seen some highlights about Boston University in recent weeks, but man, even if they're playing a close game, it does seem like they do have a lot of jump and a lot of electricity. So, I mean, it should be a really fun read. And I do think this is super tough up and down the board. I mean, the defending national champions at number 4. The fourth number 1 seed. And then I mean, it is kind of a tough. It's a tough look because Western's shown that they can be really, really tough this time of year, and it is. I mean, the Gophers are obviously where they are, but I think this would be a really tough one for them to be into.
It is. Those seeds are also kind of misnomers because Cornell, I mean, Western Michigan lost to CC in the NCHC first round. Before that, they were pretty much a little bit higher. They're on the higher end of that tier, that 6 to 12 tier. Cornell, if they won ECAC this weekend, they would have been a 2 seed. So there's very thin lines between 7, 8, 12, 13. And that's kind of the thing we're kind of seeing with all these teams. I mean, with the team where you have the Minnesota State and you have the St. Cloud States move to Fargo, where The other options, either way, if Minnesota gets past Canisius, they're facing tough teams regardless. Like there are no easy teams in this bracket. I mean, Canisius technically is about 15, 20 teams less in the pairwise than anybody else. But still, they won Atlantic hockey. They are able to shut out. They're able to find ways to win a conference tournament. So like there are no easy teams this time of year.
All right, moving on to Allentown. Honestly, boy, I would have loved to have seen, somehow Western Michigan swapped and put into this group just to get them with Michigan somewhere. That would have been so nice.
Quinnipiac, join Hockey East and just don't tell anyone. Like that'd be perfect. Boom. There you go.
Everyone's saying Michigan in a cakewalk here. I think the biggest team in trouble here is Penn State, even though they're the home team, because like we mentioned earlier, they haven't played in almost 3 weeks. They have not been playing well since the first of the year. I think Tech is going to cause them a lot of problems, Drew.
Yeah, I think I'm just pulling up I have Tech winning this game. I do. Yeah, Penn State has not been inspiring here down the stretch, especially when the Gophers played them. Like I'm sure, everybody in watching this and listening to this too is probably just Penn State did not look inspired, and they didn't look ready to be on the same level of the Gophers when they played them. But at the time too, the Gophers were trying to kind of rebound and play some really good hockey into the end of the year. But I do think Michigan Tech is a really, really strong force, and I don't think this will be that great of a game, to be completely honest. I do think Michigan Tech wins it. So an all Michigan regional final, but it's it would be cool to see. I don't know. That's because I know Viggs has been saying a lot that this Michigan team has when you can find their weaknesses and find them making mistakes, you could beat them. And that'd be funny to see Minnesota play such a complete game. Both of them play such a complete game in the Big Ten championship, and then have them lose to Tech in the final.
And Nate, maybe it's something where if Penn State could survive after not playing so long and got through that game, they have had the formula this season to take out Michigan. So that maybe is what they need to do. Just like, hey, let's just try to survive a couple periods of this game as we're getting our lungs back, play really defensive, which they don't do, and maybe sneak one out so they can get up against Michigan.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Every time I watch Penn State play Michigan, it looks like, other than Minnesota, they're the team that's kind of figured them out the best. They can't fully play their style against Michigan, but they've learned to be able to win the game. They had one where they ended up blowing a lead at Ann Arbor, the one where Luke Hughes scored 4 goals. But they were the better team for the vast majority of that game. So, and when they're in State College earlier in the season, they won, and I think they're the better team in the game that they lost. So, like, it's 3 of the 4. I thought Penn State outplayed Michigan, or just were able at least to play with them. What really makes that Penn State Michigan Tech game really just stick out for me, honestly, that's the one I'm kind of interested in more than any other of the first round matchups. I guess maybe besides St. Cloud State, Minnesota State. Look, I'm from Minnesota. That game is going to obviously pique some interest. But it's that Penn State, they have the offense, they have a bit of the home crowd. They're in a building that they are very familiar with. They've been off, but so has Michigan Tech. But then Michigan Tech has one of the top goalies in the nation, Blake Pietila. They are defensive. They have some NCAA tournament experience from last year, and see how much that makes a difference. It's really been interesting to see this bracket and realize just how many teams return with NCAA tournament experience. You have all 4 Frozen 4 teams. You have 6 of the last 8 from last season. So you have teams that know how to win in the NCAA tournament. And it's kind of really interesting to see how that matchup goes. I almost kind of feel, Michigan Tech is a tougher matchup for Penn State on that end.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, we'll get a quick look here. Quinnipiac and Merrimack, Harvard and Ohio State in Bridgeport on Friday. I actually have Harvard coming out of this bracket on the NCAA bracket.
You have them winning this. You have him making the Frozen Four.
I have them coming out of this bracket.
Wow.
I do as well. So
you're not a Quinnipiac believer. Both not Quinnipiac believers.
I really like the bracket for Quinnipiac, but Harvard has more ways to win. That Harvard-Ohio State matchup should be really fun.
It will be, yes.
Yeah, it should be. Ohio State has shown that they can make kind of those offensive teams just struggle and kind of lose away. I mean, they beat the Gophers that first time pretty handily. They beat Michigan. But I like Harvard's depth. They looked really good in the NCAA tournament before that Denver third period in the national championship game. I thought they gave Mankato their biggest scare last year. And just kind of throughout the season, I've had them pegged as a dark horse to just kind of make some noise in the tournament. I can see them putting together 2 really good games. I can see all 4 of those teams in that region put together 2 really good games. I just feel for Quinnipiac, they need to be able to play their game. They need to be leading. They need to be able to do that, and it's tough to put together 2 games like that against 2 top teams that they have to play to advance to Tampa.
Interestingly enough, Drew, in that bracket on the NCAA bracket, I have Harvard losing to Minnesota in the title game.
Really? See, I asked
a rematch of 1989.
Oh man, see, but I asked that question.
But that's why I also called my bracket. GPL is terrible at picking.
Oh, there you go. Okay. But see, I have Ohio State coming out of this side of the bracket.
Nothing wrong with that.
Of all the teams, I have them beating Harvard. I have them beating Quinnipiac. Sorry, Merrimack, but I do. I think like Nate, you mentioned dark horse for Harvard. For some reason, I mean, Ohio State's been really sneaky good the last couple of years, and I think Dobush is good, and he can make plays and make good saves when he really, really needs to, and I think that can just keep this Ohio State team in. And I just that might be my one reach pick. I think throughout most of my bracket is just Ohio State beating Harvard one, and then because I mean you can beat Harvard, you can beat Quinnipiac. I think at that point, and a lot of us, I think, on this side of the country that are not Quinnipiac believers, especially. But it's I do think the Western hockey will showcase itself, and Ohio State.
And here's the thing, though, Nate and Drew, we're all wrong. Nobody ever gets a perfect bracket. We love this tournament because it's crazy. Weird things happen. We have upsets. There's always. Typically, almost every season, a number 1 seed gets beat by a number 4.
Every year since 2006. It's been the case. It's just crazy, and
I'm glad to be wrong because it doesn't really mean much. It just means that the sport we love is just that awesome.
Which number 1 do you think is gonna? Which one number 1 do you think is gonna?
Here's the entire tournament here. Oh, which number 1 loses right off the bat?
If it's since 2006, I mean, one's got to happen.
If anything of those, I think Cornell has the best opportunity or the best chance. But as we've seen, weirder things have happened. But that's my best guess. What do you think, Nate?
I would say, Quinnipiac and Denver are probably the 2 to kind of look out for. I mean, Michigan, Colgate beat Quinnipiac and Harvard, so they beat 2 NCAA teams to win ECAC last weekend. That's not an easy feat. And Canisius, I mean, as we've seen, like it would. I should point out, Canisius beating Minnesota would basically be the real life version of what everyone assumes Holy Cross was, and Holy Cross was.
They were a 20th pairwise.
They were very close to making the NCAA tournament as an at-large. Minnesota was the 2 overall because they lost that crazy 8-7 WCHA game with St. Cloud State. Wisconsin was the number 1 because the CHA was still existed.
And they played Bemidji.
And they didn't leave the state of Wisconsin to win that championship. But this actually would be the biggest upset, like by pairwise ranking.
Far.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5. I think the RIT right now is the big one, is the biggest one.
Really?
With the 1, and then Bemidji in 2009, I believe, is either the same or it's closer. It's like 1 less. They beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame was the 2 overall.
All right, of those four, what do you think, Drew? Which one?
I'm just not necessarily a Quinnipiac believer, so maybe Merrimack. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, you do have to say.
Watch, it'll be Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough to say that right now, but like in the back of my mind, just something like for how bad they've lost to some teams. It's just the consistency might not be there, but maybe this time of year, who knows? But like, because they looked so good against the Gophers, and I just wonder, is it going to fall off? Is it going to what's it going to take for them to lose a step or to lose their focus? I don't know, but like back to the Canisius thing too. This would have to be the worst loss in Gopher history if that happens, right?
Oh, yes, it would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Given the history, given where the team is, given what the team is trying to accomplish. Oh, yes, it would.
Given most of us kind of hand waved the season just because like we knew they'd have to get back to the tournament. It's like, I mean, that was kind of the goal, right? All the guys coming back, it's like, all right, make it to the Big Ten championship game, and then make it to the tournament and make it to get a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know how you guys fill out your brackets, but when I do mine, I just always try to think of which team has the most ways to win, which team kind of has the experience, which team matches up well with they have the depth, which team has a goaltender who can steal a game. And that's always kind of the way I just try to do with my bracket to figure out, hey, like this team is very good. Because we always see very good teams, maybe they have an off night or they're able to be their top line is being able to be stymied or just a goalie steals a game. And it happens in a one game series in single elimination. And obviously it doesn't happen all the time, but
how much has your educated guesses, how well is it done for you?
It's
in
either
this tournament.
So that's the thing. It's either I was about to get to that. It's either really good or it's really bad. I've won. So the funny thing was, I won 2 years in a row, almost based on St. Cloud State being upset as the number one overall. But I've also in 2021 I picked UMass to win that one as well. I think my bracket was like I won really easily. Like the top half of it, I think I had Quinnipiac beating Minnesota State, and that was the only game like I'd missed in the top half. And then obviously like the Gophers didn't beat that, didn't move on to the Frozen Four because of that. But it's one of those things where like I either do really good or really bad, and there's no in between, just based on the style. How do you guys pick your brackets?
I definitely have a lot of bias into the teams that I've seen.
Yes.
It goes. I think it goes both ways because I mean, seeing a lot of Penn State, I picked them to lose because they just have not looked good lately. I've liked Ohio State the last couple of years. I think I'd pick them, but I mean, it is. Yeah, I think especially with the Minnesota bracket and the teams I've seen, for your reason, Nate, I picked Minnesota State to beat St. Cloud because of I think. Like, even though they barely got into the tournament, they barely won their tournament. There's some kind of a different gear that they have, and there's a sneaky way to win games this time of year. And they made two really good Minnesota teams look very pedestrian in the last couple of years. I mean, they've ended their season 2 games. They've outscored the Gophers 9-1. That's crazy. And then I get they're not the same team. There's not Dryden McKay, but there's still something there with the.
It's got to be in their head still, Drew. It's got to be in their head.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to think too. You got to give Mike Hastings a lot of credit. He knows how to. He's got the game plan to beat the Gophers, and he's just got to do a good job of. I mean, he's already doing a good job. His players just have to execute the job that he knows will work against the Gophers, and it's just a matter if it works or not. That's if they beat St. Cloud, by the way.
Yeah. This is always how it is. But also, yeah, they've had crazy ways to win and like raise hardware. They scored. They were down 2-0 with a few minutes left. Scored twice against Northern Michigan. Like they had a 5-on-3. They didn't score on that. They scored twice, extra attacker, and go on to win in overtime. The game that they won to get the McNaughton Cup, it was like disallowed goal by Michigan Tech. Michigan Tech scores a shorthanded goal to tie it. Minnesota State goes and scores like on the power play to win. And this is all in like a minute and a half's time at the end of the game. Like they know how to win crazy. And yeah, that's the NCAA tournament in a nutshell. You're not going to have 4 like humdrum games where you can lead from start to finish. You need to be able to win crazy. You need to be able to be like, hey, we're down 2-0. Let's turn that gear and score and sort of turn this game around. And we've seen Minnesota do that a lot of times this year, but now we have to see if they can do that in the NCAA tournament.
Well, let's go back to that game. Minnesota Canisius, guys. I always have that fear in the back of my head. You worry. This team this year doesn't have me as much worried, but like you said, there's always a number 1 seed, and it could always happen. What does Minnesota need to do to not allow that to happen, Drew?
Boy, I mean, we touched a little bit on it already, but I think the defense needs to be stellar. I think the top guys are going to need to be the top guys that they've been all year. I don't have a reason to doubt that, and especially like trying not to discount Canisius, but they are the number 41 pairwise team, and I think if there's a game to ease yourself back into full game shape and to play really well, I mean, there's no better opportunity when you're playing in the tournament than to do it against a 16 seed. So you got to think Brock Faber and Jackson Lacombe are really going to be in tune to what they're doing and making sure that they're doing the right things to make sure that this team can they can keep them to the perimeter, not get any good shots, not get any real good offensive chances, and just be good at making breakouts, making smart plays, and not trying to score 8 on them, even though they could. But I don't think they can't go out with that mindset that, all right, this is just practice. Like they have to keep the game settled down. And I think Brock Faber's like leadership in terms of his calm ability so far this year, and just kind of keeping focus. That's going to be key to make sure that the forwards can do what they need to do.
Now, Nate, does Canisius just come out and try to lock it down as much as possible and maybe hope for a power play or something? What should they be doing?
Yeah, they should pretty much be going in there knowing that they're going to lose the possession. They're going to lose possession. They need to not be giving up second chances. They need to be trying to keep Minnesota to the outside. For the most part, when the number 1 overall loses, or when the Atlantic hockey team wins, whether it's against number 1 or the number 2, it's almost always they get outshot. The goalie plays extremely well. They don't allow rebounds. They don't allow second chances. They counter and take advantage of opportunities. They get a lead. They're able to maybe sit on it a little bit and just clog up lanes and not allow the team that plays extremely well to just get any golden opportunities. Feel that Minnesota is a team that knows how to create second and third chances. We've seen a lot this year with their top 2 lines being able to do that and be able to draw penalties and create odd man opportunities. With the NCAA tournament, it's always going to be teams not looking to make mistakes, trying to play a little bit more cautious. But at the same time, if you're Canisius, you need to pick and choose those battles and find a way to get an odd man rush, kind of just create a counter and make the most of your few opportunities that you're going to get. Barczewski, Canisius goalie, has played extremely well down the stretch. I mean, he shut out Holy Cross at the end in the Atlantic Hockey Championship. He's certainly been the spark plug for the Golden Griffins. So,
and you never know with goalies.
Yeah,
you never know with goalies.
It's one game. It's not a series. If it's a series, I would bet my house on Minnesota. Not a chance I will ever do that for any team in a single elimination. How many teams this year if you look at that pairwise from about like right beyond Alaska to about 22, 23 teams that just missed out? How many of those lost are out on there because they lost to a team that's like 45, 50, 55? Like Northeastern missed the NCAA tournament because they lost to Bentley, and they lost to somebody else who was really down there. Maybe it was Long Island. But it's just, these are the teams, like the teams at the bottom are still able to beat top teams. We see it every year, both the NCAA tournament, and we see it throughout the regular season. So yes, Canisius is 41 in the pairwise. Yes, they are 15, 20 teams worse than the next lowest team in the pairwise. But yeah, they can win. Don't get me wrong. They can win. Would I bet on them winning? No. Would I be surprised if they win? No.
Ooh. Drew, Vegoe and I have talked all season. When Minnesota stays patient, does what they're supposed to do, doesn't have to be flashy, just play solid defense and use that puck control. They could do that to anybody. It's when they try to run and gun with other teams, like they tried to do maybe with Michigan, that they could get bit. But if they really stay at their game, they could prevent, Canisius of having any hope if they wanted to.
Yeah, and I think that obviously starts with the top line. I think Matthew Nyes can solely drain the life out of them in terms of just being a possession. Like his ability to retrieve the puck in transition, like in the neutral zone, like his takeaway numbers have to be just off the charts because he's always back checking. And that's one good thing about this Gophers team too, is that Logan Cooley back checks, Snuggerud back checks, and you know what? They don't need to. Like those guys shouldn't necessarily be expected to do it as well as they do, and they all do. And like I think it sets such a good example for the guys that are the other younger guys that just aren't necessarily at that talent skill level yet. But I think it sets a really good example up and down the lineup that, okay, we're obviously the best line, the most offensively gifted line, I think, in the country, but that's how they make their chances, by being really responsible, even when they don't have the puck. And
kind of going off that though, Drew, I think Nyes gets mad when they don't have the puck, that he becomes very aggressive going after it. If he's going back up the ice, he's very aggressive on the puck handler. He goes after them.
And it's amazing how he can walk that line between not getting a holding penalty, getting a hooking, but he still finds ways to retrieve that puck. And I think obviously we've seen Logan Cooley do it before too, but yeah, we've seen Cooley get frustrated too when he gets muscled off or just kind of gets hit really hard, kind of gets off the puck, and it kind of throws off the momentum there. But I think it starts with that line just being creative, being calm and creative, not kind of frantic. But when they get the chance and they take it, and they have to, if it doesn't work, they can't let it get to them. They just got to go, not go through the motions, but like just let the game play out and take their chances where they can and be responsible with it. But I think Matthew Nyes has realized in his 2 years of college hockey that responsibility is expected, and I think of him, and I think he's good at kind of making sure that his two slightly younger line mates are pretty aware of that as well. Sophomore and two freshmen, crazy.
Drew, finally, you're seeing the old man at 20.
Yeah, right.
Nate, let's just assume Minnesota moves on against Canisius. What does Minnesota need to do against either St. Cloud or Minnesota State to succeed and get to the Frozen Four?
They need to find a way to win a low-scoring game. I expect it both ways, no matter who wins between St. Cloud State and Minnesota, and assuming that Minnesota wins to advance. Both teams have solid goaltending. Both teams know how to play defensive hockey. Both teams have NCAA tournament experience. They know what to do to win this time of year. I mean, you have Minnesota State, who was in last year's national championship game. You have St. Cloud State, who was in it 2 years ago. So I expect, and we've seen Minnesota win low-scoring games. They're able to do it. They're able to find multiple ways to win a game and take advantage and limit mistakes and go through other teams and be able to take advantage of mistakes that other teams make. So, yeah, I would basically go with they need to be able to win a low-scoring game, and that's always a tough thing to say once we're in the NCAA tournament after 3 months of Big Ten play straight.
and St. Cloud's had some injury problems, and and so is Mankato. So
yeah,
that's part of the thinking this weekend. Let's look at the full bracket again. Let me see if I can get this to come up here. There we go. So my Frozen Four teams, I've got Minnesota coming out. I've got Boston University. I have Michigan, and I have Harvard. Drew, who do you have as your Frozen Four teams?
Got a lot of favorites and one not favorite, but I've got the Gophers against the Pioneers, and then I do have Michigan coming out facing Ohio State, so a very Big Ten heavy.
Oh,
Frozen
similar to
Four.
my bracket actually.
Yeah.
You just swapped out Harvard and Ohio State.
It's basically who wins that game. And honestly, the funny thing is that game, if you didn't switch the St. Cloud State Minnesota State matchup, that would have been the other game in the Minnesota region.
Yes, it would have been. Nate, what are your 4 picks?
I have Minnesota, Western.
Ooh.
I think they come back from that loss to CC. I have Harvard, and then I have Michigan. So we're kind of all on the same page there.
Okay. Who's your championship game, Nate?
I have the same one as you two, Minnesota, Harvard.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Drew's like, you guys are crazy.
I don't know. I don't think that's that crazy. I mean, that is an up in the air region for sure. But as much as Michigan, I think can be lopsided here and there or have streaky games. I don't know. Right now, it seems.
Steve with the revenge 34 years later on Harvard.
Boy. I mean, I have a rematch of the Big Ten championship game. In the title game, and boy, would that
would be great.
Would that be fun?
Yes.
It'd be stressful. I mean, for tons of Gophers fans, you'd be stressed out of your minds. But boy,
well, we're going to be stressed anyway, no matter who they play.
Oh yeah. But like,
we're going to be stressed tomorrow night at this time.
Say they're playing the 41st team in the pairwise, and we're all talking about, man, this is gonna be a stressful game. Like,
I will be enough stressed tomorrow.
It's the NCAA tournament.
Before we wrap this up, I will always say this is my favorite weekend of the year. I'm going to say it until I'm dead. Yes, championship weekend is great, but when it comes to one and dones, when we had the 3-day tournament, now it's a 4-day tournament on this weekend. I just love this weekend. It's my weekend I've always planned. If I'm going to Fargo on Saturday if they play. But otherwise, I would be on my couch the entire weekend. How much do you love this weekend, Drew?
It's a blast because it's a lot like, I mean, the high school tournament too, where it's kind of on all day, just throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of just tune into a lot of games that you haven't necessarily seen. I mean, I don't get to see a lot of the Eastern games just throughout the year. I mean, with ESPN Plus, I do get to see. I saw a lot of UConn hockey this year, which was fun. But it was it's just a great time of year because like we've said the whole podcast too, anything can happen. And I mean, while a lot of Gophers fans are going to be stressing at 8 p.m. tomorrow because of the 16 versus the 1 and all the history that likes to conjure itself up, it's still a really fun weekend because I mean you're going to see some upsets. You're going to see some games that you maybe pick to go one way when it's not supposed to, and it does. And it's just a lot of fun because college hockey is obviously super fast, super fun, and it's just an amazing time of year.
Now watch, all the number ones will make the Frozen Four.
Hey, if that happens, it's something we haven't seen in a very long time.
We'd have to change the stat.
It is.
Yeah. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that year happening though, where all 4 of the number ones win the first round.
Yeah, it could easily be this year.
But also could easily not be.
Yeah.
Then,
now
that's why we love this tournament.
Yeah, now watch them lose.
Yes, this is why we love the tournament. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, guys. It's always great to have you both on. And seeing that Vegoe is likely bowling at the White House right now. Did you guys see his picture on Twitter?
Chose the White House over.
Yeah, I know.
All right, well, he'll have to update us on how that goes along with Shearhorn's pickleball.
But we appreciate you guys coming on. It's great to have a couple co-hosts that Vegoe was out this week.
Happy to be here.
Always
a lot of fun.
You guys gonna stick around for some overtime here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course.
The sun's finally gone down. It's finally dark out. It's so weird to have a podcast when it's still light out. So weird. But we're gonna obviously thank Nate and Drew for coming on the podcast this week, and maybe we'll see them again later on this season. You just never know. So that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for all the time. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next time on the GPL podcast. I didn't realize we had gone so long. Just chatting.
Yeah.
Like, we're 50 minutes in. Holy cow.
Right?
I know. All right. Okay, let's do the beverage of the week. We're going to put it on you there.
Sorry. I cracked it. It has a good crack. It's something I like to call a Guinness. It's left over from the weekend. But there
you go.
There you go.
Drink
them now while it's still cold. I feel like drinking stouts.
Beverage of the week, since Vegs is not here.
I'll count it. I'll have to do his I'll have to look up his old tweets and do the Twitter cadence correctly. Make sure I can get that online. But
yeah, he was tweeting that him at the White House today.
Yeah, I did see that one earlier, but that's pretty cool.
Jerk. Let's see if I could type raw.
Bet it's nice in DC right now.
I'm sure they have slightly better weather than we do here, and I mean it's been really nice the last 2 days. So
there he is at the White House bowling alley.
We did get it nice the last night. It didn't freeze overnight again for the first time in probably 3.5 weeks.
Which is what we need to get rid of this damn snow.
Yeah, because it just kept thawing a little bit during the day and then refreeze overnight, and then it's just the process all over again.
That's been the big difference being here on the East Coast compared to Minnesota, because usually we'll get a good amount of snow, but it melts. It gets warm enough where it'll melt and it doesn't pile on like Minnesota. Like once it starts snowing, it snows and it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So we miss out on being able to skate outside, but it's kind of nice on that end where it's just not an ice pile or just a giant snow mountain.
Yeah.
So I'll be nervous until it's at least 2 or 3-0 tomorrow.
That's assuming it gets to that point, Drew.
Ooh, that's.
I don't know. I'm not. I'm just trying to be stupid, but that's I don't know. Who could say? I mean, watch, it ends up being like a 1-0 nail biter.
And that was like every other conference tournament game last weekend.
Oh, jeez. It was weird.
That was another thing. Just the contrast of between the Big Ten championship game and literally every other game watching, where everyone is 1-0, 2-1. We do not want to make a mistake. And hey,
St. Cloud North Dakota game.
I'm fine with playing overtime. Yeah. That was that was pretty much. We had about 8 games like that, and then Minnesota, Michigan are just nah, screw it. Let's just skate up and down the ice. We have Olympic sheet. For
you guys like
night.
Goals? Yeah, we can do that for you.
Glad to see you two back on the podcast. Well, they were on the
captain.
Oh, Kevin.
Oh, thanks for listening.
Yes.
But you guys were live on Sunday. I was watching you both. It was fun to watch a podcast and just relax and comment like these guys do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, that's there was sometimes
does anyone think Fish deserves one of the 7 defenseman spots? Ooh.
I do agree that Chesley has had his moments recently. I thought he looked super great the first half and maybe even a little bit further than the start of the year, but I think he's had a couple of lapses that looked, but obviously a lot of other guys have had lapses too. But I think of all guys that looked really good recently, Luke Mittelstadt, I think he deserves to be higher at least than 7th defenseman, because I think he's played really, really well. And I think he's been really good and kind of physical on the back end when a lot of the guys are kind of, a lot of either smaller or Jackson Lacombe builds where they're kind of skinnier. Mm-hmm. And I think he adds a lot of grit to the game, which was fun to watch in the moments where he did really well.
Friday, 5 games ended in overtime. The other one was 1-0. That was quite the game.
Yeah, I think 3-2 was the highest score or something like that on Friday. Yeah.
Favorite memory covering Gopher hockey on big ice, Nate?
Whew. I think I gotta go with the. I mean, it's an easy one to say, but it's probably the Nate Schmidt goal against Wisconsin to win the WCHA. Just seeing it from up there in the Mariucci press box, seeing it develop, just kind of watching the crowd understand what's going on, having everything happen in slow motion, and then kind of speed up all at once. Like I remember somebody else had a really big goal happen. Maybe like 4 or 5 years later, and asked the Don about like, is that like the craziest that you've seen the crowd go after a goal? And he was just like, no, we got that Nate Schmidt goal there. And I was like, yeah, you're right, Don.
Boy, I don't know, that Pitlick goal.
Oh man.
I mean, like I said, I had students all going. They're like this, and I got a good picture of the student section. We're all just like, holy shit, what just happened?
What about he went towards them too, so like that's even better. Like you're seeing like the full play, like just Kappen going towards you.
Yep.
Wow.
What's your favorite goal, Drew?
Oh man, I'm trying to think, because to be honest, when I covered the big ice at Mariucci, it was not a great period for Gopher hockey.
Truth.
And I'm like, I mean, what's weird is the most memorable, I think, is that 8-0 drubbing, or 8-goal drubbing to Ohio State in the middle of like December. And it was like I think Robson and Shearhorn were in, like they were both there. And because I tried to remember, because I think Robson played, and I can't like, or both of them might have played if it was 8 goals, but it was like, yeah, it was just a very awkward, uneasy night, because it just felt like, because there was nobody there, and it just felt like the end of something. And it was just because I think it was right before Christmas break, and it just was a bad taste in everybody's mouth. But I think the other most memorable one was probably after the Axe game, because I remember because they won the Axe, the football team, obviously, and then the hockey team played that night, and then they were coming back, and that was just and they brought this weird like paper mache axe on the ice, and fans were loving it. It was kind of cool. There was a lot of energy in the building that night, which was fun.
A strange one for me is just last season. They wrap up the Big Ten regular season title 8-0 against Wisconsin. And the goals just kept on coming and coming in that third period. And you just saw Wisconsin just kind of shrink down in their seats and just like, we don't want to be here. For some reason, that one's just memorable to me.
Oh, I forgot the first time I covered the North Dakota series at Mariucci was great. That was a good one. Because there was so much green in the crowd. Like, I get that's not fun for Gophers fans, but like it was cool because everyone was like going like back at each other. But
did you guys see my memory that I'm keeping from Mariucci?
No.
Is it the peg?
It's not the peg.
Oh my gosh, you got that?
This is the padding
from the
glass between the benches.
That actually is really fitting.
I grab this thing all the time, help balance, because it's up in glass when I'm sitting there. But Craig Floor is like, I'm like, are anyone gonna keep that? He's like, we went down there after the game late. It must have been about 10:30 or 11:30, and he just ripped it right off. Here you go.
So I'm sure Craig's hard at work right now, like getting that transition going, because I know he's got all that. He's got like so little time to do it. But are they putting in the NHL style glass? Do you know? Like the curved.
Yes. They will have curved.
And there's gonna be stanchions and everything.
But there will be stanchions as well. I know.
That's what I loved about Mariucci, because it could ring around the boards without popping off.
Yeah. But you still end up with weird goals though, Mariucci. I mean, heck, they went out in style with what was it, that third Michigan one? Or is the second one?
Yeah. It's the thing is that what made Mariucci glass special is that it was spring loaded around the entire glass, so it moves 2.5, 3 inches. When I'm sitting there, if I'm sitting there shooting on the glass and there's a check up, I always back up because I know that glass is going to move. Oh, yeah. And obviously the boards have some flexibility to it. Well, so those, when they say seamless glass, a lot of seamless glass wasn't spring loaded on a lot of arenas. That's why it was so dangerous. Mariucci didn't have that issue because it was spring loaded, which is I don't know how common that was, but it's just how it was. So, but yeah, I asked him for that, and he's like, you know what? He just went down and ripped it right off the Velcro, and I thought that was very cool that I get to keep a piece of the original, as Nate said, Lake Mariucci glass.
Lake Mariucci, yeah. From a time when Bandy was the style. No.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw people complaining about it so much. Oh, it's such an advantage and stuff like that. But it's a lot of people aren't taking into anything that, this is what the players and the coaches want.
Yeah.
Oh, but there's such advantage. No, it's not an advantage. They don't see it that way. If the players don't see it as an advantage, if the coaches don't see it as an advantage, make the change. You're never, ever going to play a national championship game on an ice sheet that big. Ever.
Yeah,
so why play on it at all?
Yeah, and it's just kind of posed more like logistical practice issues over the years. Like that's all I've seen. It's like, okay, yep, practice is over at Ritter this week. Yep. And that's like, okay. Now they gotta not that they have to adjust their style, but I mean you do have to adjust for how much room you have as a winger going up and down the ice and how much room you have behind you. And that like definitely affects the power play in terms of how much room you have to move. Because I mean it's gotta feel a little confining, I think. I'm like when you're thrust onto in your as is power play right onto a smaller sheet, and you kind of got a lot of smaller space in the corners and on the wall. You got to feel a little cramped, and maybe I don't know what that does. I mean, but it just seems like it would pose just some like little mini kind of nagging issues that just over the years it's like if you just have the smaller rink, it's a little easier.
It's going to be a hybrid, and the corners are still going to be very deep. They're only the radius right now in the corners is 20 feet. The rate, yes, 20 feet. So that's a really slow corner, or whatever it is. Yeah, I can't remember.
It's still
20 feet. Correct.
It's
yes,
still
20
a very
feet.
unique rink.
It's very deep. It's going to 22, so it's going from this to like this, whereas NHL is more like this in the corner. So it's still going to be fairly deep in the corners. They can only change the radius by a total of 2 feet. NHL is 28 feet radius, which, like Vegoe was saying on the podcast last week, it almost starts at the at the top of the dots, which starts to curve in. So, still going to have, deep corners.
Yeah, it's still at the end of the day, it's a unique rink. One of the things I enjoy about college hockey is that you have a ton of different rinks. Certainly many are NHL styles, but having a hybrid rink is not anything new. Notre Dame's is, I believe BU's is also 90. So even like newer rinks are kind of there. Just right now, Mariucci, when it was built, the Olympic style craze was in, and it made sense. You had college players who were going to the Olympics rather than the NHL. Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, that's where it kind of comes to an end, where all the rinks that are Olympic were basically built between about the mid 80s and about the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, they're all going away. Just it's Olympic size ice is not really much of a thing, not even at the international level anymore. International hockey is going back down to 85. And we're kind of seeing all these Olympic size rinks being cut down. New Hampshire this past season, they used to be one of the few out east that is 100, and now they are down to, I don't know if it's 89 or if it's 80, a full actually 85. Mankato at one point was 100. Too. There's not too many.
They really should do it at the Kohl Center actually, because they could change that at the Kohl Center just because the seats do change. They move with basketball and whatnot. And the thing is, if they made it just like it's at 97 right now. You just make it 90 feet at the Kohl Center. You're in the upper deck. You might actually be able to see the near boards.
Those upper deck seats would finally...
You're still kind of screwed on the ends. You're still kind of screwed on the ends, but at least on the sides, it might have some better angles there for the third deck. When they ever use the third deck, maybe they'll start getting the crowd there again.
I've been up there once in the third deck, and I was like, you cannot see like it was like the old Metrodome where just like you just assume you're not like going to see anything like right below you. If you're up in like the old right field seats where just any hit out there, you're like, maybe it's a home run. I'll tell by how people are cheering, or no, it's not. I can't see.
One thing is not changing. The angle and everything is still remaining exactly the same. I've always loved Mariucci. It's pretty steep. You get up over the glass pretty quickly. It used to be more quickly because on the sides, originally Mariucci had much shorter glass on the sides. I think it was 4 feet. You could just stand there and grab the top of the glass along the sides. That's long gone. I think it's close to 9 feet up there now so it's not even close, but still, even at Mariucci, you're up over the glass pretty quickly in the stands. So none of the angles are going to change. That'll still be nice. I'm kind of curious how the ends will be. I know quite a few people who are watching, and I know Steve sits on like row right at the end there, row 1 in section 1 or something like that. And essentially they're going to add a row, and they can't add a row in front of there because it's to 200 feet, but it's actually going to be lower down. So like instead of if you're sitting there, instead of the boards being right here, maybe it's like another foot down. You're up much higher on the ice surface, but it's not going to change. So strange stuff. But I got my keepsake, so that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Especially something that I've seen and used so many times since I was in the photo box just last weekend in the second period. I grabbed that thing for leverage many times. So
sounds like they're not updating the press box at all, are they? It's already really nice up there, but
I was going to say it's still one of the nicer
incredibly
press boxes
nice
in college hockey.
It's like the best.
It's pretty big for a press box in college.
Yeah.
That's especially even like a lot of new rinks, like they're shrinking down the press box. You don't realize
like it was.
You don't realize how spoiled like the Mariucci press box is. Like the only newer one that kind of gives it the same run for its money is Notre Dame.
The Mariucci press box looks like a press box that was designed for a major media market that just lost its pro NHL team.
I mean, no. Hold on though. Mariucci was built. When was the last season? 93?
It opened the season after the North Stars left. So it was built while the North Stars were still in Minnesota.
But still.
It can accommodate a lot more media now that they don't. That's the highest level of hockey in the. I mean, were the Moose there at that point yet, or not?
They were starting to get there.
Yeah, the Moose were there. The Moose were in St. Paul.
But people care way more about the Gophers than the Moose.
Yeah,
and
they did.
There was an AHL team here, and the Gophers. I think everybody'd care more about.
It was the IHL, the International
IHL.
League.
IHL, yeah.
It was. I enjoyed that start because that was the era that I grew up in, and my dad would just take me to like so many weird and random like hockey things because we get those neutral site games.
Yeah, you went to some of those?
Yeah, I went to a few of those.
My parents still ticket stubs
in Target Center, and it basically seemed like it was the NHL's idea of, hey, let's figure out what markets still want to like see hockey. I saw the Moose, I saw the RHI, the roller hockey, the Arctic Blast, the Fluox. So Drew in the mid '90s, that was like a thing. Roller hockey was
Target
like a
Center
thing.
Terrible press box, way far away.
It always looks deserted for basketball games.
Tampa, basketball they just put them down front.
Yeah.
Or the important people.
No, the thing that stinks for the Target Center press box is like you take the elevator up, then you have to go all the way around and then take the elevator up again. Like,
to
get to it. Yeah.
The press box in Tampa is not that easy to get to either.
It's the slowest elevator ever.
Well, it's better if you take, if I recall, there's a giant service elevator. It goes all the way up, and it's like a giant, like 8 foot, but it's really huge in there.
It's a giant freight elevator, and basically it goes to the top, and then it just stops at every floor going down. So you get down.
Their press box tiny.
Yeah, their press box is tiny too.
Yeah, and when I shot there in 2012, I was basically in an aisle, one of those corridors going from the main level out to the concourse, and you just had to stand there and stay off to the side when the fans came by because there was no other place to go. And, but that wasn't so bad because there was a suite right next to me and sitting 2 feet from me, 3 feet from me, Mark Messier the entire game for that first game when Minnesota played Boston College.
Wow.
So that was kind of cool to have Mark Messier right there next to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if people are, Tampa, not a great city to go to. Press box for us media folks, not the greatest. It sounds. I don't have a press box spot this weekend. There's the Shields is not big enough. Maybe I'm guessing better chance things could maybe open up for Saturday with, let's say, St. Cloud or Mankato goes home. Obviously, that's a lot of some of the media gone. So
You still end up with two. I mean, you still end up with two like local teams. Although,
who does St. Cloud have though?
That's the.
They don't have a newspaper anymore.
I was just about to ask, what is the St. Paul media market basically down the Twin Cities again? Because I know obviously Mankato has people.
Yeah, I don't know.
They have a TV station. They have the Free Press. I don't know if Shane's going up there or not, but they certainly have people. But yeah, I don't know. It still should be a bunch. I know. I know. Like they usually end up doing one of those things where like they put like radio in the press box and they kind of find like a weird spot off in the corner for like the rest of the media. I know Sioux Falls did that when I went down there in 2018. They basically use like an area that like was kind of in the corner that like was supposed to be suites, but it wasn't.
Let me see here. I've got the official email right here. Let me check this. I believe they have. They're gonna have the media workroom, which will have plenty of TVs in it, which is not rink side. I'm guessing I will see a game from there. Honestly, I'm only going on Saturday, so please go first win tomorrow night. And obviously you've got this ticket situation, which is a complete cluster for all the North Dakota fans that bought tickets through UND. Mm-hmm. They basically it's will call. They have to go get them. Mm. So I'm thinking there might be some empty seats, if I want to sit and maybe shoot from a seat. I don't know. I don't know what the whole deal is. We'll see. Oh boy. Yeah, August of 1993 was when Mariucci opened.
Okay.
There's the ticket right there for the grand opening, August 10th, I believe it was, 1993.
Did you agree with the one Minnesota Canisius game? Like, was it 2012?
October 28th, 2012, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it was a Sunday. I was gonna say, like, you're asking me about it. I'm like, I know they played once. It was a Sunday afternoon because of football. It started like at 1:00.
You said 2012?
I think it was 2012. It was 2011 or 2012, but I think it was 2012-13 because Canisius ended up.
Yeah,
I think that's the season they also made the other one.
It was Adam Wilcox's first shutout.
Well, do we have a date?
October 28th, I think.
Yeah, it's during hockey, or sorry, it's during football season.
Yes, I do. I've got some photos from it actually.
Oh wow!
Canisius was wearing almost like a dark black. It looks like Minnesota was wearing their gold. I kept 7 photos from that game.
Wow!
Because I've gone through and just gotten rid of so many photos that no longer matter. Honestly, I wonder if I can just open up a tab here and throw a photo in there.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where I'm crazy. I'm like, I remember all of this. How do I still remember this? It was one of those games. It was like, I think it was the game that honestly coined the Deutsch special of it's a 1-0 go for a win. That's the best one possible. And it was a lot. Like Rouse scored like on the opening shift, and that was the game. That was the only goal of the game. And it was probably one of like 4 chances that both teams had. It was a really weird game.
Let me see if I could share a tab.
That was my first
I think Eric Hollow was playing for the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was my first season. My dad got season tickets that year for the first time, and that was like the first season I went regularly to a lot of Gopher games. My first one was that 9-0 Sacred Heart game, the exhibition.
I think that's Cephas, maybe. Here, let me find one with the.
AJ Michelson.
No, it's AJ Michelson. Yeah, that's 15. Okay.
There's Rao. Are you guys seeing the same one? I'm not. I have to go back here. I have to share. I have to share the correct tab. Hold on. There we go. So you could see they're wearing some dark stuff here.
Yeah. There's Bugey in the background.
He's... So there you go. There's a couple photos. Yeah, it looks like that's a very dark. It's either black or a dark blue. I'm guessing it's a dark blue.
Yeah.
I just didn't correct the image enough. So there you go.
Good shooting.
So I did have some photos from back then. Just 7 of them. So nothing great.
Well, now you got to keep these photos forever, and then 11 years from now, when the Gophers play Canisius again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone through and deleted so many photos because you end up back in the early times you take 200-300 photos a game because you just want. Now I don't do that so much. I'm much more selective. But yeah, there you go. I actually had photos. I didn't even think of looking that up.
Yeah, the one time they've ever met.
Yeah, that's two straight years where they've played an opponent they've only played once because they only played Western once before last year's too.
I mean, before last year too, they'd only played Mankato once.
It was funny because Deutsch.
Well, in the tournament at least.
Yeah, that's in the tournament. No, I mean,
sorry, no, I get what you meant after the fact.
But because Deutsch did that tweet right, was you guys were live on Sunday night.
Yeah, that was thinking. He said it afterwards. I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly the game I remember." And I just crazy that game happened 11 years ago, and I still remember it.
Oh man, it just means we're getting old. That's
well,
Drew was in high school. But...
No, I just turned 25. It's a weird age.
As Craig Flores says, you're twice his age. I'm too damn old. So what kind of questions you guys got for us tonight? We got 53 people watching us live. I'm guessing there's less chatting because I did turn it off that only people who are subscribed to the channel could tweet or could chat. There were a couple of Facebook ones. What was some of these Facebook ones? Let me see if I can bring them up.
I guess I'll know next time I go try and comment if I'm subscribed or not. I don't remember if I'm.
Well, I had to turn it on specifically for one. Okay, well, here's a Facebook one. Lots has been said about the Gophers' perspective on the Minnesota bracket. Any thoughts on how St. Cloud or Mankato feels about being placed in the Minnesota bracket? I think they're just fine with it.
Yeah, the fans' perspective I think the teams are just fine with it. I think the fans are ecstatic because they love their recent history against the Gophers.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
It's funny. Both teams had this exact same situation 5 years ago. It was St. Cloud State was the number 1 overall. Moscow's last year, right before they lost to Air Force. Then he got announced like 5 days later as Minnesota's coach. And it was Mankato Duluth as I think it was like they were like the 6-12 game. And they moved it for the same reason where it's 2 Minnesota teams don't need to be playing in Bridgeport. So we have to fill Sioux Falls out because there's no North Dakota, there's no Minnesota.
Okay, Mr. Eckes, you weren't watching earlier, but we did speculate about this. For me, I thought Cornell was the best chance to beat Denver as a number 1 seed. Nate, didn't you think Quinnipiac was vulnerable?
I said, yeah. I was like, yeah, basically I think in order, Cornell, Merrimack, Colgate, Canisius.
Trader Mo back in the portal. Going to the who?
Drew DeRitter doesn't have any eligibility left, does he? I don't think they want him back.
Here's the deal, folks. There's going to start being a lot more guys in these portals because they're just trying to get that extra year. They're available for 1 year. Motzko doesn't really want to do it at all. He said it might keep a couple guys an extra year, but he almost seems like he's just not interested in the portal that much. Maybe for a goalie or something like that, but I just don't see him going after anybody in the portal.
But watch these big schools like North Dakota, Minnesota, other schools. I mean, maybe
you can't build that way though. You can't build that way though.
I'm saying from a goalie perspective, watch these guys that develop and face a ton of shots and get shelled at these smaller schools, maybe out east or something, for 2 or 3 years, and then they say, man, I feel like I'm good enough, and like people can kind of realize it, like, okay, maybe they're a little good enough. They're good enough. They're keeping their team in games. They're winning games.
They're good
but
enough.
they're not going
They're
to
smart enough. And
Yeah.
gosh darn it, people like me.
But I mean, yeah, then they transfer. I mean, I think Drew DeRitter is kind of almost like an example of that, where it's like Michigan State, obviously not very good. I mean, it didn't turn out that he was like a world beater at North Dakota, but like go to North Dakota, see what you can do, and see like, all right, let's take this good goalie on a bad team and see if he can be a great goalie on a good team.
And they had Michigan State Drew DeRitter for about the second half of the season. It just was too little too late with North Dakota putting it together. Again, they're kind of one of those teams where at the end of the year, they look back and they're like, oh, we changed this and this, like we're in the tournament. And I mean, that's just the finite nature, just the thin margins of making the NCAA tournament. Drew, I'm with you that the best way to use the portal is to have a grad goalie or just someone to kind of have that 1 or 2 year gap, especially when you don't have somebody who is that future goalie. It has been interesting though, because you've seen teams use the portal really well to create teams and rebuild. Western Michigan did that this year after basically losing all their key players from the NCAA tournament team last year. Quinnipiac's done a fantastic job the last 2 years. If you look at all their top players, besides Peretz, it's almost always guys who transferred into the program from somewhere else. Is that
that's the shock
from
photo?
Pillick? Yeah,
that's the shock photo. A couple kids screaming there. One kid's got he's got his hat over his face on the left side in the dark jersey, and then everyone else has got their hands up on their head up on the other side.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what you can't see is the people right next to me along the side of me. We're all like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" So it was interesting, quite interesting.
That was fantastic. Oh yes, but it's the thing. It's like you can use the portal and rebound and reload. You could have it blow up in your face. I think that pretty much was Jerry Urick's last team at BC. I thought they used the portal really well, and just you never gelled. You never had that identity. I mean, North Dakota did it like 2 years ago. It seemed like they did it really well, and they did it again this year, and it didn't work. It's kind of sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, yeah, you've already seen it not really. I mean, not work at times. I mean, the Grant Cruikshank angle didn't work here. I mean, he's a great player, had a great year for St. Cloud. Did not work.
Maybe he should have been playing center instead of wing. That kind of comes back to maybe you put him with Walker and McLaughlin last year, and you put him at center, and
then it's difficult too.
Somewhere Viggs is like hearing up, is like, oh, I know what's going. It's like the Walker line is buzzing.
He did have a lot of opportunities. He couldn't finish a lot.
Yeah.
But we're just purely speculating on him at center and whatnot. He's playing great this year.
Yeah.
He was actually part of the news conference today for St. Cloud. So
you have to think that is certainly something that's the back of Bob's mind of like, I don't know about using the portal as much. Because that seemed like a big coup to have him in Minnesota, and just like it was exactly what you thought the Gophers needed for last season, and it didn't work out the same.
It's like an older guy, but it's like, man, you jump into a team that's just got so many pieces already, where it's like, how do you fit in? That's a lot easier said than done. But I mean, if I were Bob too, I mean, who needs grad goalies when you've got a third? You just got to get a good third stringer. Let him ride the bench for 3 years, and then just there you go.
And the thing is, he does have another goalie in the pipeline that sounds like it could come in next year, because I assume he's thinking that Close is not coming back. There's so much. It's so much goofiness. I don't know.
The extra COVID year makes everything just so much better.
And it's still got a couple more years or something like that till that runs out.
I think next year's the last one.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of guys, obviously, we had like 50 of them jump in the portal the other day, a bunch today. These schools aren't going to have spots. I would only see Moscow using the portal if somebody leaves late in summer, some unexpected Pitlick leaves or something like that. That's someone you don't expect to leave, and you need another body. I could see that really is the only way of him using the portal.
What if it's a defenseman? What if somehow a Kester leaves? I think he's set
and
up to
that's
be
a
like the
similar
number one guy.
situation.
Just thinking but they do have a lot of pieces. Because obviously this year they're stacked, but you see those big three leave, and then you could get a fourth to leave. You got to get somebody big to fill those. Because Luke Middlestad, Ryan Chesley, yeah, great. I think Fish can slot in. Staudiker, I guess not with the red shirt anymore. You still got holes to fill. And you don't want to have a weak third pair on a team that.
And who's coming in? Let me see here. I have to check. Recruits.
Yeah, especially
Sam Renzel, Max Rude.
Boom.
So they got two guys
You got
that have signed their letter of intent.
Yeah.
In Renzel and Rude.
Yeah. If a guy like that leaves, do you even dork with what you got going just to just screw up a spot? It's like, stick with your plan. Bob seems to be like a guy who just wants to be like, I've had a plan in place for the last 5 years and I'm going to execute it. Mm. And that's just, he seems like he knows who he's going to get.
And Renzel's 6'4", Rude's 6'2". These are not little guys coming in.
Not your average Gopher defenseman, I guess. Wow.
I think Kester's going to be key next year.
Yeah, he's so good.
He is your quarterback, and he is your leader on the defense.
He's so good. It's amazing. Like any other team this year, he'd be a number one. I think he'd be like the premier defenseman on just about any other team. Maybe not Michigan because of Luke Hughes, but
I also think another quarterback back there could be Chesley. He's just had some weird, freaky flashes of offense.
He's looked really good at times and really not at times.
Well, I know. That's the youth, though.
I was about to say, it's almost just Minnesota's defense has been just so steady and so consistent. You almost forget, he's a freshman. It takes time to adjust to college hockey. Yeah, he's a second-round pick.
Yeah,
but he's still coming in as a young freshman, and college hockey is a major adjustment. He's being thrown in situations where it's okay for him to make mistakes, and not every player gets that opportunity. But I agree. At times, it can be frustrating, but it's also maybe nice to have him work that out this year and be able to take that next step in his development next year. That's certainly something that it seems like Bob prides himself on, is getting these players to development. We're basically saying the same thing about Jackson Lacombe his freshman year for a lot of this.
And his sophomore year.
And his
maybe even his senior year. He's had a few mistakes. This year he's made a few plays and you're like, what do you do? He looks like he doesn't he doesn't see the pressure behind him, and he's just kind of lackadaisically and he loses the puck, and it's like, gosh, I remember feeling that way with Mike Riley as sophomore year. What are you doing? What are you thinking about? And then it's like you see that happens for everybody. If it happens to Jackson Lacombe his senior year and he's a highly prized NHL prospect, and especially with how good the defense has been, I feel like it's just amplified when it's Chesley or someone else, because there's been so few mistakes that it just stands out more.
It does, yeah. Just get them to grow and make those steps from year to year. I was kind of thinking that Mike Riley was one of the guys who came into mind, and just having a Mark Alter just as to basically be back there to make up for anything that's going to happen.
I just remember Ben Marshall as a kid when I was in middle school. He was the bane of my existence. I just always remember seeing I just would always be like, Ben Marshall making another stupid play, and
for me it was Fairchild.
Fairchild
was just.
I feel like I remember him playing with Jake Parenteau sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. It's basically you throw the guys who can kind of be a fourth forward, and give him the opportunity to be a puck moving defenseman, but it doesn't always work. So have a very defensively minded defenseman be on the other side of him to take care and shovel out any of the manure that happens.
Okay, I gotta ask you this, Drew, as a young person. I found out recently that Faber wasn't too happy that I ripped the team when they did a salute after losing to Michigan. Mm. He's like, "Who is this guy? Who does he think he is?
He called you out."
Not publicly. I just heard it from the backside of it. Who is this guy? Who does he think he is? And I keep thinking, I'm old. Yell at a cloud. Blah blah blah. But as a younger person, does tradition just not matter as much anymore? or is it something maybe they should pay attention to? Because
I don't
I'm
know.
not the only one who ripped them.
See, I do like the tradition of the program, especially just because it is like it's pretty well established. But I don't know, like I didn't have a problem with the salute thing, mainly, and maybe I'm just thinking of this from like the student base needs to like feel a part of it again, and feel a part of it like after years of like seeing it down, like when I was at Mariucci a lot when there was nobody there, even student section sometimes was never there. But if I don't know if it's like an acknowledgement to your fans to say, hey, thanks for showing up. And thanks for we couldn't get it done, but thanks for being here and supporting us anyways. I don't mind it entirely.
It's such a half-ass thing to do when they've lost. They're kind of like, let's get off the ice. There's no. It doesn't feel like there's any meaning to it. Yeah, they might be salute the fans. We had 10,000 fans this night. We had the biggest crowd ever at Michigan, but they lost the game, and I kind of come back to, okay, they're still giving this kind of half-ass thing. For me, old guy, grandpa yelling at a cloud.
I'm middle. I'm between you guys, and I get both sides. I'm getting up closer to old man yelling at a cloud sooner. One of these years it'll be me. But I get where like Faber in Minnesota is coming from. Go on the road. Go to any Big Ten game. Most teams at the end of it will salute their student section. They'll stand on the ice. They'll sing like the alma mater or a school song, and they'll do it with that. You go to Penn State, you go to Michigan, it's happened. So I kind of trying to get that bit of that, get the student section involved and kind of create your own tradition there. I would love just to see them do that versus the go out and then salute the fans, center ice after just a game, no matter what happens. And maybe you create your own tradition and then you save and you keep the you keep the special one, you keep the sweep for that. That's what I would like. Obviously, especially Minnesota's brand, like their marketing, it's based on tradition. It's based on their history. So they are kind of in a tough spot, and it is really tough for the Gophers to kind of create their own
do a new tradition.
That has been a really tough thing. Just think about how many things they've done. Like we've all. Yeah, I'll say like I've covered them for a decade. Drew, you've been there for like about at least 5, 6, 7, 8 years at this point. Yeah. Jupe, you've been there for I don't even know how long at this point.
16th season.
16, okay, 16 seasons. So like think about how many things we've all seen come and go during that time that Minnesota has tried to, and some of them have stuck, most of them don't. But yeah, I'm kind of with you where I don't like seeing new like old traditions kind of repurposed, but I would love to see them do something kind of.
But the new thing with Motzko was, after they would do a salute or whatever, they went over towards the student section and skated over and put their arms up, did whatever. So that's kind of, I like that. Mm-hmm. I think the stick salute, I'm an old guy. It used to be even better because back in the 80s and 90s, before they started chastising the band, with 1 minute to go, the band would start playing the battle hymn. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of times they'd be finishing that up and the game ends and it's just kept building and building. The crowd's building because they start playing it at a minute left. That's when it was full on tradition, loud, everything. Obviously then all of a sudden the band can't play during play and then all these other stupid rules. So I don't know. Like I said, old man yelling at cloud.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see. Let me grab this question. Ekas, of course. Who's the Hobie? Who's the top three guys?
Oof.
All three.
I'd be a bad judge of this. I haven't seen a lot of the other players that are nominated.
And who has?
That's why I wouldn't be a good voter for it. I'd be like, or else I'd have to drastically change my schedule to watch all the top teams every single weekend.
I think Fantilli should take it. I don't know if he does. And honestly, if Michigan, it would be very hilarious that the Frozen Four is in the same spot that the last time it was that Kyle Connor lost to Jimmy Vesey, if that happens again. I think it's, for me, the story of the year, though, in college hockey is we have so many veterans coming back and so many teams that are full of 23, 24, 25-year-olds. And then you have all these young 18, 19-year-old freshmen and sophomores who are putting up these insane numbers that you haven't seen since the 80s and are just bringing life to the game and just making game-changing plays and bringing the entertainment value up. Like college hockey has not been in a better place as it has in the last few years with just the talent that is coming in and playing it. Even if they're spending a year or two there, just it seems like just it's on the upswing. The entertainment value is high, and for me, that I know the committee does not always incentivize the underclassmen or players the person who puts up the most points or the player who scores the most goals.
Well, look at Myers.
But I feel like, but I feel like for me, like the story of this year is there's several freshmen and sophomores. It should be someone on there. Like, honestly, we were talking about this on Drew's podcast on Sunday, and it's really tough to say, like, from the Gophers who should win it out of the things. They almost all cancel each other out. I feel like I would give it to Nyes out of anyone there, but I almost feel like they cancel each other out. So
I think there's zero chance Cooley stays another year.
Yeah.
Unless it's something like maybe Arizona lowballs them, but man, that's got to suck to go to Arizona and play in a smaller rink.
Yeah, I mean, unless he doesn't want to like lose another like a year, like lose a ton of games, because they're gonna lose a ton of games next year, the Coyotes, and like, does he want to be this? Like, does he want to put? I mean, you make the money. I mean, it is good money, and you're going to be an NHL regardless. It's not like I think of what's his name, Aaron Ness leaving, and then kind of jumping in. It's like, yeah, it's your paycheck, and like you don't know if you're going to get another offer. Like, he's playing the NHL regardless. And do you want that paycheck now, or do you want to like dominate at this level again and let the team lose a bunch more and then get one step further in the rebuild that you don't have to be a part of? I still think he's going to go, but I mean, what if he thinks about like, boy, do I want to be miserable for a year and lose a ton of games and be just, because he seems like a guy who's like really, really,
and it sucks for him too. It sucks because he could leave at the end of the season. Would he even play? They're not going to play him to burn a season of a contract. Arizona's certainly not going to do that. It's a lot different with Nyes.
If they suck him
burn a season.
Yeah.
They'll burn a season.
If he was going to the AHL, I bet you he'd play. I bet you he'd stay. He doesn't want to play in the AHL, does he? Logan Cooley?
Yeah, but I'm thinking it's something where he doesn't go right away. He'll wait to the end of the season and then, join him, sometime next summer or whatever. But because I don't think he wants to go play in the AHL right now.
Yeah. Maybe that could be one of the surprise.
If Minnesota were to go all the way to the Frozen Four, he'd come back and play maybe 3 or 4 games. There's no way Arizona would be stupid enough to burn a year of of a youth player that way, would they?
I think that he could probably try to use his leverage on that end, though. Be like, hey, I'm going to go back to Minnesota. I'm happy here. We are building a great thing here with the Gophers.
Especially if they don't win the national championship.
Yeah, like you can use that as leverage. Again? I think he's gone. Don't get me wrong. I think he's gone within the week, whichever one that Minnesota ends, whether it's next week or if it's 3 weeks. But
he does have leverage. What if he goes?
Maybe
he wants to go down there and get it. I want to, I'll sign a contract right now. I want to play right now. Meaning he would burn that year.
Yeah.
Which would be really smart on his part if he doesn't want to stay there.
It would. There are very few players who I believe should be true one and dones, but it's tough to see. And I would love to see Logan Cooley come back and play another year with Minnesota. Don't get me wrong. Like, for anyone watching where I'm saying this, I would be extremely happy to watch him play with the Maroon and Gold. But it's also tough to see what he can do and how he can kind of further develop and dominate college hockey after what he did this season. There are very few players who do that as freshmen, but I think he's in there. And I think for the most part, I do think there are other players who are freshmen in college hockey who would be very smart to come back and stay another year, and who are those first round picks, who are those high ends. I just don't see it with Cooley though.
Yeah, it's like with I always think the Middlestat. Like Middlestat should have stayed another year. I think.
Yeah.
And then he would have been like. I feel like he would have been a really good NHLer quicker than he was because I think he's been amazing this year, and I think parts of last year he was amazing too. But like, I think he would have benefited from another year of being here. But with Logan Cooley, I mean, he like because I remember when Casey came and there were all these expectations for him, and at college level he didn't hit it.
Yeah,
he didn't.
He was good. He wasn't dominate good.
But everyone was like, "Man, Cooley's going to be dominant," and he was. Like, and it like he lived up. Like this was such a good year for like people living up to the expectations that they had for him in the offseason. Like, I think Close is going to be really good. He was really good. He was better than really good at many times. And like,
but
Lacombe, Faber, Johnson, super good.
Vanek was 30-30, and he came back for a second year, or 31-30, or something ridiculous like that his freshman year. And he came back. And he could have come back his third year because that third year he ended up playing in the AHL because of the NHL strike.
Boy, I mean, it would be super fun if Cooley came back. I don't think he is, but like if it goes beyond like the first week of the offseason, I would think there's a much better chance than like the 0 I think it is now. Like the longer it goes on, if he plays that leverage and he says, "Wow, I guess I don't know if I really like the direction this team is going in," and then he says, "Maybe
can
I'll
he do
just
a
come
pull
back
up
here
yet? Isn't that Middlestat?
That was Middlestat,
yeah, because he dislocated his shoulder and he didn't know it. Right? Was that the thing?
I don't know.
It was every visiting rink that year. Somebody had a sign or the photo of him like trying to do it.
Oh,
every single one. And but yeah, I go back to just kind of finishing that Cooley discussion. It's Wisconsin when they had Alex Turcotte and Cole Caulfield as freshmen, like both high-end top 12 picks or whatever. Turcotte goes and signs with the Kings. Caulfield stays. They both had good seasons, but not great seasons. Caulfield stays and comes back and dominates college hockey, wins the Hobie, and just takes his game to another level. I feel like, if you are going to be a top player in college hockey, don't leave until you're dominating the level.
That's what the Don always said.
Don't leave. Yeah, exactly. Don't leave. I probably listened to one too many Don that she had press conferences. But yeah, don't leave until you can step in right away. You're not going to be able to. I'm pretty sure this is also a Don line of just like you aren't be able to learn by being on the bus in the AHL. Like you don't get that same development time.
Yeah, but you know what? Money sure does talk. Mm-hmm. And kids who don't like school, that sure does talk. So he's carrying bags. We saw him carrying pads yesterday. Goalie pads, helping out unload the bus. It's not like he's definitely a team player right now. So it will be interesting.
Yeah.
Trying to see if Viggs is going to come on. OT going for a bit longer, he says. As he sends me a picture of him in the White House press room.
Really? Right now?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if it's right now, but it was a picture of him in the press room.
Wow.
Him and Ted Lasso this week. It's a big week for the White House press room.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get it to pop up here. Dang it. Let me see here. No, come on. Let's see if it'll let me share it here. Here we go. Vegoe at the White House. See if it's showing here. There he is.
Yep.
In the big press room. What a stud, huh?
Wow.
Oh, Viggs. Such a superstar. Wearing his Ryder Cup Hazeltine 2016, yeah. And then earlier was a picture of him bowling. Jeez. Some guys, I tell you.
Right? Oh.
Gophers have a chance to be as good this year as 2 years from now. Man, boy. And then maybe if you... And the thing is, what if... Because Moore's coming in next year.
Yeah, Moore and Renzel. I mean, I think you have a first-round pick for sure, and then you probably get another one.
It's going to be interesting. Oh, Denny. Thoughts on Jess's questions. I haven't listened to it yet.
I've not seen.
I don't know.
I can't comment on this one.
No. I actually grabbed the video myself and put it up, and along with the Canisius video. But I'll have to go back. I haven't had a chance to look at it. Usually with content, I'm just trying to get it, put it up, and people can look at it if they want. We'll see. Oh boy, we shall see. God, it's so weird to be so long into a podcast. It's almost 10 o'clock for you though, Nate.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's late for me. I appreciate you guys also starting early for me on that end because.
Well, I figured Viggs wasn't gonna be here with the kids and bed and all that stuff. I'm like, I wanted to start earlier because it's sometimes I don't even start putting the podcast together until like after midnight, and man, that's just. I have a newer computer, so it comes together much quicker. Even the video, it like outputs really quick. But still, it's like I want to get the audio podcast posted. I want to get the video posted, and it takes time. And when you finish at 11:30, a lot of times it's like I'm just tired. Steve earlier was saying, "Hey, super long overtime." I'm like, I can't, dude. I just don't have the energy.
Yeah, boy, that during COVID, that was some of the best overtime.
But that's how we connected, though.
Forever. I know, It was great. I lived for Wednesday nights at some of those times, man. It was great.
But this year, you came to Madison. You came out and had a beer with us.
I did. I had a Liney
That was
Summer
fun.
Shandy. And it was great. My fave.
That's great. I think you were underage when you were in Madison when I was there the last time.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, so we can do that.
Yep.
And it turned out
it was me. But then me, you, and Declan did. We
did the podcast in the hotel room.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Oh my gosh! But the person sitting behind you, Drew. When you came in the bar, there's maybe I don't know if the family was still there. There was a family there. He was one of those players that was introduced the next night. His brother had passed away, and the daughter was there. That was the guy sitting right next to us.
Okay.
And he wanted to meet Frank and all this stuff. So I'm like, what?
See, I thought you were talking about Rob for a second. I was like, what?
No, not Rob. No.
Because Rob was behind me.
Everybody knows Rob.
Yeah.
Well, you guys don't know Rob. Brever made it. What did I miss? You missed the entire show, Brever. We're just ending it up. Yeah, we're earlier tonight because we could. I mean, if the Gophers make it to the Frozen Four, I'll do it live from probably my sister's house. I'll do it from my sister's house. Because I was hoping the USCHO party was going to be that Wednesday night. It's not going to be till Friday night.
Oh, see, that's the thing. I was bummed because they switched it last year. It was Wednesday night. I didn't go up to Thursday in Boston. It was a good time.
It's Friday night this year. I've never attended one, so it'll be interesting. It starts at Friday night at 9. I'm like,
yeah, it's
old man, tired.
Get a couple of Red Bulls in your jupe, and you'll be okay. Okay.
I'm not a Red Bull guy.
It's a fun time. I'll say that much for anyone who has been to the USCHL party. No one is not having a good time there.
So I'm looking forward to that. We'll do that on Friday. But I was hoping to kind of do it on Wednesday and bring the laptop down to wherever we are and try to do a live podcast there. And then just grab people.
And that's
people don't realize how low tech this actually is. This is all on a laptop. I bought some extra little lapel microphones. I got 3 of them that could be used easily. And they're like 20 foot. They're USB. They're 20-foot cords. So you could put them anywhere. So, so Brever, just got a ticket for Fargo tomorrow myself. Yeah. I'm going up on Saturday. Knock on wood. They did get a connect. I don't think I've been to a regional since it was here.
One of the ones the Gophers were in, or
yeah, maybe against Boston University, maybe that one.
The BU North Dakota. That's 2012.
It might have been that long. What?
Yeah, because
Has it been that long?
No, I know the last one, 2014. They played Robert Morris and St. Cloud State. That was at the X too.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, because then they missed 2016. They missed, and it was the one that Ferris beat St. Cloud State, and like there were more people in the press box for the championship game because it was like Ferris State Denver. And I think I was the only person happy about it at the time because I was stringing for the Ferris paper, so I got that extra day of work.
I would love to do a podcast downtown Tampa, but I got to have solid internet on a laptop. And that's, it's not easy to do. I'm thinking. We'll see. We'll see. If something comes up, I might try to do it, but that's awful risky. But maybe Vegoe just runs the show and I can connect my phone if I need to.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Viggs shows up here.
Yeah, me too. It's been too long since Viggs. It's awesome. Honestly, I was kind of thinking.
Well, that's why he's asking if it's going to go on for a bit longer because I think he said he was just finishing up his White House tour thing, and he's probably thinking if we can hang on a little bit.
Yeah.
Get from his phone, like in front of the White House, like walking down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, Viggs, you heard him. Just dial up on your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew used to do it from outside Mariucci. I think you did it at least once outside Mariucci, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple of times.
One of your post games?
The post game, the periscopes. Boy, I forgot about that.
The periscopes, yes.
Yeah, one time I did one on my walk home because I lived close to Mariucci, so I just did it the whole walk down University. That was a cold night. I couldn't feel my hands after that one, but that was a different story.
I distinctly remember one time Rob and I were at White Castle in Bloomington.
Oh.
And we were like watching. I think
don't tempt me.
We were commenting and stuff like that. And then another time I've been home watching, the game on TV. My girlfriend, she's like, "You be nice to Drew. You just be nice to that young man." That's probably why she bought you the beer at Wisconsin. She felt bad because we're always harassing you, trying to get you to break in your live broadcast. Because
most of the time it would work because I'd be like, I'd ignore the spam comments. Like, and then it'd be like, totally I saw the logo, and I was like, okay.
You totally be like, I just lost my train of thought because we're causing trouble.
Yeah.
So I think she felt bad for you. She's like, you be nice to that young man.
Oh my gosh.
What can you do? Come on, Viggs, you coming?
Come on, Viggs.
Bring the family. Text them. That would be fun.
No, honestly, I've been. It's been nice. I've listened all year. Actually, the funny thing was, I didn't hit me because I always listen when I'm running. I run it at like 1.5 speed. Mm-hmm. So the intro, I was like, oh yeah, it's just a regular speed. I usually think it's pumped up, it's fast. But then I remembered, it's because I run it at 1.5.
I do that for quite a few podcasts too.
Yeah, it's the only way I can get through all the podcasts that I listen to, and also usually. It just it feels like if I run at a regular speed, it's going too slow now.
You see, that's why I do like overtime here because it's just people. It's just like we're sitting around a couch talking about stuff, and it just throwing stuff back off each other. Yeah. And like I said, we've had it like.
Sure, I understand.
Damn, Siri started talking to me for some reason. I hate that. But like even last week, we were up. It was midnight when we ended, and there were still 50 people watching live.
Ooh.
I mean,
GPLers, they're a different breed.
Well, it says 44 now, so that's not bad. We've added a couple. I think I saw 59 at one point.
Jeez.
So that's not bad.
Yeah.
It's been funny watching Drew freeze every 30 seconds though tonight.
Really? Is that?
Yeah.
Your video is frozen.
You've
Your
had a
audio's
couple
been
times.
perfect,
Yep.
Dang
but
it.
your face freezes a lot.
Yeah. It's not as bad as like when like Viggs would be like calling from like his like staircase or something, and like half the time like the audio would drop.
I have a screenshot.
Yeah, that was
from
audio.
one
That was
this
more
season
important.
Where Veeks
Oh.
froze, and it was really funny.
Uh-oh.
It was really good.
Be nice to that, Drew. I just came home from work. Give me a break.
That's amazing.
Oh. Hey, he appreciated you buying his beer. And he appreciates
beer.
you defending him, too.
Absolutely.
Is Drew in a closet?
No, I'm actually in our. It's a tiny little office. It was listed
My
as
office
a
is
bedroom.
tiny, too.
No chance it's a bedroom.
Yeah.
Like you could fit maybe like a twin bed in here, but that's about it. But we use it as like
That's about what mine is.
me and my roommate
Mine's
have
all- I
like
mean,
each have
you
a
look it
desk
out,
in
I mean,
here. So
It's tiny behind me, and
Yeah.
literally it's just a corridor to a door there. So
Yeah.
it's...
it's just a very
It's-
narrow room too. So like I'm like right by the
Oh,
door.
my gosh. There he is.
He's
Viggs.
from the White
Viggs.
House.
Yeah.
Air Vigo reporting from the White House.
Oh my gosh.
How is everybody?
Viggs,
We're
I'm
doing
doing
good,
well.
man.
We're doing great.
Yeah.
Good to see
Are you
you.
actually at the White House right now?
How's Joe?
No, I am not. I've left
Okay.
the White House. I don't think they were going to let me. I
Oh.
joked about it, that I was going to like join on my phone from the press room at the White House tonight, but I don't think that was going to fly.
Well, you're press. It's the
No.
press room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent Jupe a picture of me in the press room.
Yeah.
I showed it to him. He was
Okay,
on the podcast.
that's good. Well, the national emergency is over. I think I tweeted about hazing today, only minorly, and I've gotten a lot of replies, but more favorites and retweets, I think. So
Hmm.
made a very lighthearted statement, how I thought it was nice. Ryan Johnson. Yep, there I am in the press room.
Hey, sorry, I was just putting that one together. There he is.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great tweet. How there is no hazing and stuff. I'm like, I thought it was great, Viggs.
Yeah, I got replies. I got DMs. I got a lot of the world upset with me that think hazing, like carrying bags, is still a good thing. But I don't know. I think there's better ways to team build, holding teammates accountable, and showing them what it takes to be a Division I student athlete and doing all the right
Yeah.
things on the ice, off the ice, in the weight room, getting sleep. So it was interesting, but oh well, educational for everybody, right?
Hey, looks like the team not carrying the bags is number. Last time I checked, they're number one, and they're the number one overall seed. I wonder if that's working. Seems like it is.
Yeah, Denver doesn't do any hazing. They're a number one seed too. Works pretty well. But yeah,
How's the White House, man? Oh, wait. Hold on.
Oh, he
Let's
does.
bring
Of course
you up.
he
We
does.
got to bring you up here.
Yep.
Oh,
okay. So this is Aslan Brewing from Virginia. Clear Nights,
nice.
Nice.
West Coast style India Pale Ale. Very nice. It's what I had when I was bowling tonight. Brought me good luck. We had
Nice.
so many kids in the bowling
So
alley.
you
that
bowled
we
over
didn't-
110?
We had so many kids in the bowling alley that we didn't get to finish our game.
Oh,
So, but the kids had fun.
well, that's good. That's good.
Delicious.
Nice.
It's been a long day in DC.
Well, of course.
I've got 16,000 steps.
Oh my
Yeah.
God!
It's
There
a
we
walk.
go.
It's a walk in town.
It is a walk in town. Yes,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite towns. I haven't been back in 30 years now, but I do need to get back there.
Yeah, I was down there for a wedding summer before the pandemic, so yeah, it's been a few for me now too. But
All right, hold on.
I need to. I'm only like a few hours away too as well.
Yeah, but tell us, you're getting married
Yes.
next week, man.
I am.
More info. Let's go. Come on.
I am. Yeah, I'm getting married. I'm out here in New Jersey. My lovely fiance and I mean, so one of the things we always were joking about, we wanted an indoor wedding, so we didn't want it during the summer. We also joked about how that week between the regionals and the Frozen Four is always just, there's nothing that ever happens during it.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, why not get married for it? But yeah, so I am really excited. Yeah, I've been like knee deep in wedding planning and just all the little details for the last couple of weeks, and I'll be excited to be walking down the aisle in a few days. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Man.
Awesome, mate.
I mean, you guys been two of you guys, you've been married. Do you guys have any good advice for me?
Well, I've also been divorced too. I'll let Vegoe handle that.
Wedding day, get a little exercise in early. It'll help pep you, wake you up, I think is always a good thing. And just enjoy the day as much as you can. Try to take it in, take your time, listen to people, try to spend time with the people that you want to be with, and don't rush
because it goes by fast.
Goes by very fast.
Oh my goodness.
Mix in a water every once in a while. It's always a good, advice. And make sure the bride's happy.
Oh yeah, that's
all that matters.
Yes,
really.
yes.
And the mother of the bride also helps too. So,
yeah.
I actually would agree with him completely on that because just keep the bride happy.
Enjoy the days after too. Try not to be too busy. So.
Yes.
Yeah, we've scheduled some downtime just to be able to decompress, relax. Someone gave me the good advice of like a couple of days after, just write down everything you remember from the wedding and just the days leading up to it and everything, because you're not going to remember it forever. It'll be good to have. So yeah,
Viggs,
I'm excited.
While we have you here, Viggs, give us your picks for each bracket: Minnesota, Canisius, St. Cloud, and Mankato.
I really like Minnesota, St. Cloud getting through, and then the Gophers getting on to the Frozen Four. I actually think that St. Cloud and Minnesota State aren't as good as they've been the last couple of years.
Or even earlier this year.
Despite all the bickering we have about this region, maybe not being perfect, this is actually a pretty good draw for the Gophers. I don't think St. Cloud and Minnesota State can score like they have in the past, and they definitely don't defend as well as they have in the past either.
Okay. Manchester.
I like Denver and Western in the final, and Denver getting through.
Really?
I think BU is one of those teams that's an inconsistent young team, a lot of talent, but getting in a tournament against a team like Western, who's got just an elite top line, I think that's a really tough matchup for them. And I think they're a little bit battle-tested the last few years, so I think that's an upset pick. But Denver,
I had BU coming out of that one.
Okay. I mean, it's possible. I mean, they're talented. Yeah, they're kind of like a Michigan team. They've got a lot of young talent, but who knows what's going to get them through the Frozen Four.
Allentown. Okay, before you go to your pick, what do you think of that Penn State-Michigan State game? Because our kind of feeling was Penn State's been gone so long, they could be in big trouble. But if they could survive that game, they may actually give a better game to Michigan than Tech would.
Yeah, I think they would give a better game to Michigan just because they've seen them. They know what to expect.
They can beat them
after shaking off the rust in that first game. But Michigan Tech is a tough draw in that first round game.
Yep.
And I do have Tech winning in my brackets out there. And of course, Michigan getting through. Yeah, I think Tech's easy upset pick. If you're going to pick an upset in the first round, Tech would be my favorite, just because that long layoff for Penn State. We've seen it with the Gophers. Every time they've had time off, it takes a while to ramp up. Tech is right in the heart of things. So,
yeah, like I said, I just think Penn State's the only team that could give Michigan a good run for their money in the final. But their biggest problem is that first game.
Michigan Tech does have the good goaltending too, so that could be the great equalizer. Because I didn't think Portillo looked especially good down the stretch for Michigan.
All right, Bridgeport.
I think Quinnipiac gets by Merrimack in the first round, and I think Ohio State gets by Harvard. Harvard's again one of those teams that's young and new to the tournament. Maybe not the best conference tournament for them either. Ohio State, I think, got a little disappointed down the stretch, but we saw after Dobish had some bad games, he could refocus the next. I do like the Buckeyes to get out of this region. I think Quinnipiac's had such a soft schedule that when they play a hard team like Ohio State, it's going to be a tough matchup for them. And I like the Buckeyes, Frozen Four.
You see now,
I like it, Viggs. I like it.
Drew's with you on that, whereas Nate and I both pick Harvard. We both have Harvard going to the title game.
Well, I could see Harvard getting through on talent, but again,
8-1-1 in the last 10 games.
Ohio State.
Yeah, and there's the big picture. Probably small for most people, but I had Minnesota, Boston University, Michigan, and Harvard, and then Harvard and Minnesota in the final. Nate, you had Michigan. I can't remember your picks, Nate.
I had Minnesota, Western, Michigan, and Harvard.
Okay, Nate. Oh, you got your pick. So Drew, sorry.
I had Minnesota, Denver, Ohio State, and Michigan.
By the way, Drew.
I like it. Who'd you have?
Does
in the
everyone
title
have
game,
Minnesota
then?
as a champion?
I've got Minnesota, Michigan rematch of the Big Ten championship.
We got the same Frozen Four and the same title game.
No, I think they both bring it.
Whereas Nate and I have the 34th anniversary revenge tour of 1989.
Well, that's more for fun than anything, right, guys?
It is, and we kind of even talked about that earlier. It's like you could be an expert, you could pick with your heart. That's what this tournament is so unique, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Like we said, every year since 2006, a number one seed has lost that first game. Which number one seed loses right away, right off the bat here? It happens every year. Or is this year where we finally go back to no number one seed's losing?
I mean, I think if there's a number one seed that loses, Quinnipiac would be the one I would pick out of these four.
I picked Denver because I think Denver, their goaltending, obviously he took himself out of the game. They've got some injury issues. Could be tricky for Denver.
That could be true.
So, fun stuff. Fun stuff. Oh wait, here you go. Barbie's got some advice for you. Try to have a few minutes alone prior to your wedding ceremony. There's a few minutes of calm.
Yeah. That's really good advice. I appreciate that.
Or well, Barb, weren't you on like Valium or something for your wedding? She was on something. But then, of course, she does say good luck, too. So.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. Some kind of over-the-counter thing, wasn't it, Barbie? You told me this. That little church just on your way to West Union, whatever Union Town is, just outside of Carver. There you go. That's my girl right there. So, Vigs, how is the trip, though? I mean, what else have you seen besides the White House?
Well, I did the East Wing, the West Wing, and the bowling. So I've got that White House thing covered. The only way I could get to see more is if I got invited to be a guest to the president or something. I might actually get to go in the rooms rather than down the hallways. But we've also seen the Smithsonian Zoo, Smithsonian Natural History, American History. We've done them all. Tomorrow we're going to get to have breakfast with Senator Klobuchar's staff and see some of that stuff over at the Capitol and the Senate buildings. And then we're going to go see a little bit more Natural History Museum and the Lincoln Memorial, and maybe some other memorials.
Air and Space? Air and Space?
Oh, yeah, we did the Air and Space, too.
I love that one.
A big part of it's closed for renovations.
Really?
But we still saw, these cool things about, the flight with the Wright brothers. And
I understand they actually have a hangar that's just on the edge of town, too. That's got a lot of like a Blackbird and the big planes in a huge.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a travel there, but it's a cool building there in space. When I was here probably 30 years ago when I was a little kid, and I remember that being the coolest site of them all. But it's a little under renovation right now, but it was still a fun experience.
I was there when I was
cherry blossoms.
Oh yeah, it's cherry blossom season.
The peak bloom is actually tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that would
nice.
be fun too.
What a perfect time to be there, man.
Yeah, we can already see them starting to come in. So it's been great.
Before we go here tonight, guys, because obviously you two guys on the East Coast, it's a little later. Vigs, your thoughts on the Big Ten championship? Again, Michigan gets them.
I thought the Gopher defensemen, especially Faber and Lacombe, looked tired and just a little slow to pucks. Puck retrievals, exits were slow, and it just kind of made them off just a step, so they weren't really clean going through. Some of that credit goes to Michigan. I thought Michigan played their best game against Minnesota all year. And the other thing was the Gopher power play. Disappointed. I liked that they kept Mike Kester there because I thought he'd done well in the weeks leading up. But in the game against Michigan, Michigan applied a lot of pressure, and I didn't think Minnesota handled it very well and didn't get very good opportunities. And I think, down the stretch here, they're going to need to figure out how to get Jackson Lacombe back on that top unit because they've established such good chemistry from that first power play, and then let that second power play be Kester's unit and figure it out.
And like Brever said, Michigan stayed out of the box when they averaged 17 minutes a game. They certainly didn't on Saturday.
Yeah. And I see the comments already. It's like, Lacombe's coming back from injury. Faber was coming back from his illness. And I think they just probably took a little bit too much time off. The 2 games in 23 days. I mean, that's not ideal. But maybe the rest came at the right time and they'll be able to peak this weekend.
Nate has a great idea, though. How about you put the semifinal as the best 2 out of 3?
I think that would be fine. Or if you played the semifinal and the final at a host.
That was the other one, yep.
That's the other one to do. And just figure it out.
If you're spreading across 3, have that semifinal be best of 3. But I don't know, personally, I would take the 2 because then you also get a week. You can spread out the season a little bit more and have an extra bye week in the middle of the season.
Or just play the first game on a Friday, have a Tuesday game for your semifinal, and then do a Saturday game for your final. Whatever you can do to condense that window.
I can't find the game if it's on a Tuesday, Viggs. I don't know how to use a TV guide.
I know. It's tough, isn't it? I pity the people that are going to be surprised about the tournament starting on Thursday.
Hey, at least it's in the evening for the Gophers, at least. At least it's not the 1 p.m.
Oh, the 1 p.m. Friday game of death. That game, always something's crazy happens from it. It doesn't matter what, but I mean, at least also games on ESPN too. It's a channel that you can get without a crazy cable package.
Who's the announcers on it again? Is it Dan?
No.
Dan
I tweeted
it. Dan's not doing it. I know he told me he's going on to Tampa if a Big Ten team goes on there though. But
give me a second here. I've got
it's more BTN stuff.
Because I tweeted it yesterday.
I remember Bucci said it in the selection show, and I just can't remember it.
Roxy Bernstein and Clymer.
Okay.
Roxy Bernstein usually does basketball, though. And Matvick and Richland are going to do Allentown. I think Matvick was originally planned to be here. Of course, I tweeted that, and then Roxy came back. It was never that way. I'm like, I think it was a long time ago because I get a text from Mike Vindovic, who's doing stats with Clay, and he's like, yeah, both Clay and I are pissed that we have to go to frickin' Allentown. And that they changed it from Fargo. So.
Viggs, you're only a few hours from Allentown.
Yeah,
but close to Midwest.
I'm flying back to Minnesota Friday morning, and my hockey association has their annual fundraiser on Saturday, and we're feeding 400 to 500 people my pasta dinner. I'm cooking.
Nice.
So I'm making the sauce, and I'm making the noodles, and we have a big silent auction.
And the TV on all day as you're watching, as you're doing the cooking.
I know it's gonna be brutal for that timing, but it's a huge deal for hockey in North and Northeast Minneapolis. If you see my Twitter, I put a link to our silent auction. We've got some great stuff like some Blanton's bourbon, some Knob Creek bourbon and rye, haircuts Dapper Wolf, golf at Les Bolstad Golf Course, the U of M course, Second Swing, donate a gift certificate. So lots of great stuff on there. If you want to support youth athletics, see my Twitter. There's a link on there. We appreciate all the support out there. So I can't miss that.
Pumped for Clymer to cheer against the Gophers. Pumped to be at the game, to not have to listen to Clymer. I've come to the conclusion that I am done listening to people complain about Clymer. After hearing so many other bad color guys, especially for the state high school tournament, or even other schools, I'm no longer saying anything bad about Clymer because other schools, Clymer is so much better than what all the other schools have to offer. I'm done. I'm on the Clymer bandwagon.
It is a very tough job. That is pretty much the big takeaway. The people who do it very well make it seem 100 times easier than it really is. And honestly, when you've come across somebody who does not do it well, it makes you understand how tough it is.
Brutal. I cannot stand Parrish. And his brother's even worse on Fox.
Well, his brother's worse on the St. Cloud.
Oh, my God. That's just even worse. Yeah.
I remember the Minnesota State games. I was not impressed with story time during the first period against the Gophers for that game. One bit of news. I got to hop off here in a minute or two because I got to meet with Senator Klobuchar in the morning with a bunch of other Minnesotans.
Going to meet with Senator Klobuchar.
Senator.
I just spent an evening at the White House.
Yeah, so we're gonna be having some oatmeal. Anyway, apparently here that Bob Motzko is looking for some name, image, likeness funds for a couple players to come back next year. So if anyone's on the fence, Dinkytown Athletes is doing a drive right now where they match, a donation to them that supports athletes directly. Sounds like Bob is trying to get into that. So if anyone's interested in supporting student athletes, you should look into that and see if it's something that interests you, because I know it could keep some players around a little bit longer. I know they've been sponsoring players to do interviews on Gopher Illustrated's podcast. Maybe we could see some players getting sponsored to do interviews with us on Gopher Puck Live. We'll see.
Who's got the money for that?
There are donors out there. And Minnesota's actually doing pretty well on the name.
Viggs, you saw I stole this from Mariucci.
There you go. You should have paid money for that.
No. I didn't steal it. Craig gave it.
No.
But it's cool. All right. I think that's enough for overtime because you guys on the East Coast got to go to bed, and I got to go to bed early. So it's kind of nice to cut it down early. Thanks, you guys, for coming on. And thanks for Viggs for coming on late there, because it's always good to get your thoughts on the games this weekend, because kind of missed not having them.
Can't wait to listen to what I missed on the podcast by going back and listening later. But thanks for coming on, Nate, Drew. Love you guys.
Of course.
Happy to be here. Absolutely.
Congrats on your wedding, Nate.
Thanks, Viggs. Yeah, honestly, I miss talking to you guys and just being around the press box and just getting those opportunities just to just shoot the breeze and talk hockey. It's like, so
that's what overtime's
I listen to you guys.
For.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
What I love overtime.
I listen every week. I was going on in my ears while running, so it's great to actually be a part. Although now all the opposite problem is you, Viggs. I can't listen to this week, so I already know what happened.
All right, we're done here, folks. You guys have a great week. Go Gophers.